local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, June 17th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 15 degrees. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The province is inching towards step 2 of its reopening, but with that, some words of caution. Here's City News reporter Jamie Pulfer.
The hashtag vaccine Hunger Games is being used to describe the hunt for second doses in Ontario Delta variant hotspots. The Ford government could address the issue during that update on the vaccination plan today. We're set to hear from the health minister and the solicitor general at 1 o'clock. Perhaps there could be further changes to eligibility. This as calls continue for the province to speed up the reopening plan as case numbers continue to drop and vaccinations ramp up. Mayor John Tory on Breakfast Television.
I think we just have to make sure we do this carefully. So I'm confident that the public health people will talk to the Premier and that he will make the right decision, whatever that may be. I want things open, as many things open as soon as possible, just like everybody else.
Health experts are using the UK as a cautionary tale, though, where the Delta variant is fueling a rise in cases and forcing a reopening delay. Experts say we're about a month behind the UK when it comes to the emergence of this variant. Dr. Peter Uni, who sits on the province's science advisory table, tells the Toronto Star the next 2 weeks will be crucial in determining how well Ontario fares against this formidable new foe. I'm Jamie Pulfer.
City News Time, 9:01. Now, as Canada continues to say mixing vaccines is okay, researchers in several countries still gathering the data. World Health Organization Vaccine Unit Director Dr. Kate O'Brien says experts feel mix and match regimens are going to work, but more evidence is needed just to make sure. Scientists at Oxford University, for example, are testing combinations of the vaccines made by AstraZeneca, Moderna, Novavax, and Pfizer. And also smaller trials are continuing in Spain and Germany. So far, limited data suggests an AstraZeneca shot followed by Pfizer is safe and effective, but comes with a slightly higher chance of temporary side effects like aches and chills. A Smiths Falls woman known to frequent Ottawa has been reported missing. Now, Kingston police say Jessica Munt recently contacted her family, at least a family member in Kingston, saying that she was in that town. Officers spoke with her over the phone, but there have been no reports of her being seen in Kingston. Officers have not been able to meet with her in person to verify her well-being. She is described as white, 5 feet 4 inches tall, with long black hair, possibly dyed red. She also has an eyebrow ring and a couple of tattoos. We do have her picture up at ottawa.citynews.ca. City News Time, 9:03. Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International say people seeking asylum in Canada are regularly handcuffed, shackled, and held with little or no contact with the outside world. The organizations say people can be detained for months or even years on immigration-related grounds, and that detainees of color appear to be held for longer time. But detainees have been released at unprecedented rates since this pandemic began. The organizations say the government now has a real opportunity to overhaul the system, prioritize mental health and human rights. Rafael Nadal says he has listened to his body and he has decided he will not be taking part in Wimbledon this year or in this summer's Olympics in Tokyo. Nadal is a 2-time title winner at Wimbledon and won gold in men's singles at the 2008 Beijing Olympics. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's got the news and the views.
He's got views on the news.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
I'm putting you in charge. Okay? You're in charge. Congratulations, you are now in charge of the city of Ottawa. Just saw on Twitter the mayor's taking a few days off, so I'm putting you in charge of the city of Ottawa, and here is $1 billion. $1 billion to make life better in Ottawa. What would you spend the money on? Oh, we're going to talk a lot about that this morning. Green, no matter the cost. Good morning. Welcome to the Rob Snow Show on City News. We're here until noon, and we're always thrilled when you join us for the ride. Randall Denley coming up first this morning, post-media columnist and author. He writes about local issues for the Ottawa Citizen, covers the Ford government for the National Post. We haven't chatted for a few weeks. I was away. He was away. We're back together again this morning, and we're on the same wavelength. We're going to talk about the city's official plan. We're going to talk about urban planning. Randall calls the official plan critically flawed. That's what he said in his column this week for the Citizen. And we will be talking about $1 billion. $1 billion. $1 billion for electric buses. I think it's just amazing how this deal has come together in record-breaking time. And I question the wisdom of rushing into such a decision, and we're rushing into it, ladies and gentlemen, no doubt about it. So that's coming up in a few minutes from now. Every Thursday, we do Ontario politics this week with Andrew Brander and Lindsay Maskell, covering the left and the right. And the notwithstanding clause, still a big story. They did it. The Ontario PCs. Doug Ford used the notwithstanding clause in the charter for the first time in Ontario's history. We will debate, discuss the ramifications of that and whether Premier Ford can get through it or suffer some blowback because of that. We'll also be looking at some of the local races. We're about a year away from the next provincial election. And both Andrew and Lindsay are very familiar with all the Ottawa ridings. Lindsay used to work with Dalton McGuinty, and Andrew used to live in Ottawa. For my money, come election night next year, I think I'm going to be watching ridings like Ottawa West Nepean, because the PCs turned that one blue in the last election. But you would also have to think, let's say the Liberal Party under Mr. Del Duca is indeed poised for a comeback for the ages, mere 4 years after being sent to the political wilderness. Ottawa West Nepean, I think, is one to watch, and same with Ottawa Centre. Maybe the Liberals can manage to steal that one back from the NDP. I'll also be curious to see what happens out in Glengarry Prescott Russell, because it's held by a floor crosser, Amanda Simard. You remember, she was elected as a progressive conservative and then bolted for the Liberals because of cuts to, I want to say, Francophone University, if memory serves. Will she carry it as a Liberal? I would think so. And I also wonder if Dr. Fullerton, Marilee Fullerton, long-term care minister, is exposed in her riding of Kanata-Carleton. Federally, you have to remember that riding is a Liberal riding. So the Liberals would love to take that one as well. But we'll get into it all coming up right after the 9:30 news. As well, Pat Uguccioni, back on the Rob Snow Show. Pat is managing editor of the Ottawa Community Voice newspapers. He used to work at Ottawa City Hall. He used to work in a mayor's office. He's a very tuned-in guy. So we're going to have some fun taking a look at next year's race for mayor. Now, Jim Watson, maybe, he's taking a few days off, going to enjoy a long weekend. Maybe he's contemplating his own political future. Hasn't made up his mind yet if he's going to run again, longest-serving mayor in the city's history. Bob Chiarelli has had that job before, and he's been on my program, says, I'm thinking about it. I'm serious about it. Seriously thinking about making a run. So we're going to have some fun taking a look at next year's race for mayor. Who could potentially be on a ballot? Who would be some serious contenders for the top job right here in our city? Pat is hearing names you know. And we'll have a chat about that a little later in the program. In sports, I like golf, and it's my radio show, so we get to talk about golf today. Adam Stanley from the Canadian Press on the U.S. Open starts today. But to me, I really want to get your take on this plan, ladies and gentlemen, that has really taken on a life of its own, to spend $1 billion of taxpayers' money on electric buses, whether it's the city's money or the federal government's money. It's your money, okay? And it's a lot of money. I mean, $1 billion for a city of 1 million people. A lot of money. You remember a few weeks ago, $3 million a tax break to a car dealership, that was the end of the world, right? People setting their hair on fire, rallies held, lefties wearing buttons that read, "People, not Porsches. People, not Porsches," right? The mayor hanging an effigy, for crying out loud. What were we talking about there? $3 million? Thereabouts? Over 10 years? Here, I don't know. It looks to me like we have basically a green scheme cooked up in the back room of the mayor's office and the infrastructure minister's office, Catherine McKenna. $1 billion for electric buses. So I've interviewed the mayor about this. I interviewed the chair of the Transit Commission about this. And to call their spin tap dancing doesn't do it justice, okay? It's a two-step jig that would be right at home at the Douglas Tavern. The Hubley-Watson two-step jig. You think about this. We have gone in this city in a matter of a week, okay, from running a pilot project involving a couple of very expensive electric buses, about $3 million a bus, okay, when you include the charging equipment, and they don't work without charging equipment, okay? We've gone from that idea to this idea. Instead, why don't we spend $1 billion? I still can't wrap my head around $1 billion over 6 years, involving 450 buses at a cost, and I'm not kidding you, that brings the cost out to $2.2 million a bus. Again, when you include the cost of the charging equipment, and an electric bus doesn't work without charging equipment. And what we don't know, that list is longer than what we do know. We have no idea how these buses will perform in an Ottawa winter. We have no idea if they will actually save money in the long run. We're told they will, but nobody knows that for sure. There's no guarantee at all of that. No idea about maintenance costs, no idea about the cost of a replacement battery, for example, the effects of cold weather on the range of a bus or the performance of the bus. None of it. We know nothing about any of that. All we know is that it's green. So, hey, if it's green, it's got to be good, right? Not only good, I mean virtuous. I mean holy. Like blessed by the Pope. And to even question it, well, what does that mean? You're a dinosaur. Oh, Rob Snow, you're a dinosaur. Knuckle-dragging Neanderthal. You must be a climate denier. Spare me. I'm none of that stuff. Okay? I'll tell you what I'm skeptical of. I'm skeptical about grand transit plans dreamed up by the bright lights at Ottawa City Hall, the same bright lights who gave you the fiasco called Phase 1 of light rail. And it is moving far too fast for my comfort. This wasn't even on the radar last week. Next week, City Council will bless it. Yeah, let's go do it. What? Holy smokes, never has $1 billion moved through City Hall so fast. $1 billion, folks, the entire annual budget for OC Transpo is about $600 million. And a few weeks ago, $3 million to a car dealer would have cured so many social ills in the city. Imagine what you could do with $1 billion. The good you could do with $1 billion. And that's how I want to approach our talkback hour today that we do between 10 and 11 o'clock every morning. Okay, it's 750-1310. You're in charge. You get to run the city of Ottawa. Congratulations, who would want the job? But imagine it. This is how I want you to picture it. One day you're sitting in the office and $1 billion falls from the sky right onto your lap. And you can use that money for whatever you think would make Ottawa a better place. What would you do with $1 billion? Would you fix up social housing? Maybe get rid of the bed bugs once and for all? in social housing. Maybe repair the backlog at Ottawa social housing. What is that backlog cost now? Something like $500 million? Not kidding? What's the wait time to get a unit in social housing? Maybe you could eat away at that. Last time I heard it was 10 years. Same as it was when I moved to Ottawa 30 years ago. The addicted, we have an opioid addiction crisis in this city. Maybe build some rehabilitation facilities with some of that money. More green space, more parks, better roads, more money for social workers, more money for social services, more money for public health, whatever. You got $1 billion. Would you spend it on 450 electric buses? All you lefties at City Hall, don't you ever, ever again come begging for more money for one of your social justice causes because you just blew the budget. I'm afraid it's going to be rolling down the streets of Ottawa at $2.2 million a bus. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Opening a business especially in a pandemic, in that kind of situation, is very challenging. First, people don't know me, people don't know my product. To build a new clientele, to build a trust for them, to show them that I care about it. I do love my food. That was the biggest challenge. And of course, in all lockdown, I had to face it regards my employee, girls, ladies, what they work for me. I didn't want to tell them, sorry, I'm closed, I'm not having a job for you. No, they have a families, they have kids to feed. So this is very important because we are family orientated. And we decided to open. We, of course, essential business. So been very tough, very, very tough, as we didn't see people on the road. Market was completely quiet, but we knew it that we have to wait, and we knew it that we're gonna be fine. In this town, we built online shop, Vedel Online, and we did Uber Eats, which one is picking up and is very, very popular. We have a really good feedback. So this is the song from my heart. And and we try to expand. I'm thinking about opening another location. So I want to make Vedel famous. I want to make the Vedel place to be for all the families with kids. Try the traditional food, what the grandparents cooked in the countries when they're from, or even Canadian people. They're more than welcome to come and try our famous pierogis. I try to be passionate about my food, organic food made with love, with all homemade, organic. So you can find food from all over the Europe: Polish, German, Ukrainian, Romanian, French, Armenian. So all kind of different types of food. Homemade lunches. We focus on the homemade lunches, grandma style. I keep always saying, like in my Genia Babcia house, how she cooked. I wanted this love and this food over here because I believe that would bring all people around me. And all the organic cold cuts, lovely selection of sausages, cheeses, European cheeses, great selections of mustards, French cookies. All what you need from Europe you can find here at the Vedel Touch of Europe. If you think good way, that's it. You have to. I had the option to cry in the corner and say, oh, pandemic is coming. No, you need to stand up and fight for it and have your eyes open, think outside of the box and do it.
Returns
on Rogers TV and City News 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Let's jump right into it. Some hot issues to talk about this morning with author and columnist Randall Denley. Welcome back to the Rob Snow Show, Randall.
Thanks, Rob.
What's still wrong with Ottawa's official plan?
Two things, I think. One, they've improved it a little bit by changing up some of the language. They moved some of the areas like Alta Vista out of the extreme intensification zone, but they're still relying on 60% intensification. That's way more than we've achieved in the past. And it's okay, all right, we won't be pushing all this intensification on Alta Vista and all the sort of post-1950 neighborhoods around the core of the city. Okay, well, where will the people go then? I mean, it tells me one of two things. Either they're just changing the language by saying it's not a requirement that all these things be built, it's a target.
Okay.
But are they still going to say yes to every possible thing that occurs? And if they're not, then where do they go? They've talked a little bit about high-rises, all right, like 40 stories instead of 30. At the same time, they say, we don't want a city where it's just single-family homes and high-rises, which is a fair point, actually, but how is this going to happen? Because you can't really say to one group of people, we're lightening up on the intensification burden in your neighborhood without putting more in someone else's neighborhood. That's an unknown factor at this point, I would say. The biggest thing that I don't like about this plan, Rob, and I think a lot of other people are on the same page, is that it's incredibly prescriptive for an official plan. Traditionally, the job of an official plan and all that it has to do is to say, okay, here's our population projection, how much we're going to grow. Here's where we think that growth will occur. And here's where we think we can meet market demand with a mix of apartments, townhouses, single-family homes, all that. So that's our broad plan. That's all they have to do. But the planners have really gotten engaged with this. And I think, no, that's not good enough. What we want to do is plan the whole city out street by street, and even streets that are the way they've been for decades. Well, yeah, but they should be changed. It's like we want a do-over on the whole city. And to me, it's a straitjacket on the future imposed by people based on their best views of 2021. I just don't think that's the way to go. I don't think we can foresee the future that way.
Well, I think the experience of the last year and a half has taught us that, hasn't it? Yeah.
It doesn't seem to have taught the people at City Hall that, although I think it's taught other people that. Once people are untethered from the need to live downtown because, I working in federal government office building, I want to get this condo, I can walk to work, it's all good. But then somebody says, well, you can work from home. Suddenly here I am in my 600-foot condo, maybe with a partner. We're both working from home. We're going, oh my God, we're cooped up in here. And there's no place to go. Suddenly the Ottawa suburbs look way more attractive. The Ottawa rural area looks attractive because people will say, well, it doesn't matter where I work, then why don't I work someplace where I got a little bit of space because the commute isn't a factor. And I think a lot of that's going to persist after the pandemic's over, but we're just ignoring that. We're still focused on the same thing, yeah, tons of jobs downtown, people living downtown, everybody walking out to shop at main streets. That's another one that gets me about this, Robbie. I mean, it sounds good. The 15-minute neighborhood.
Yep.
Wow, everything I need, I can just walk to. Except that's not the way our city has been built. It's not the way people shop. It's not the way retailers sell. I just see it as kind of a weirdly conservative throwback to the past. Say, yeah, remember the good old days?
Yeah. Gonna go down to the hardware store. Gonna go down to the hardware store, buy some nails at the Main Street hardware store.
And it wasn't because people necessarily wanted to have all this stuff within 15 minutes, but that was about as far as they were prepared to walk, I guess, typically.
Yeah.
And a lot of people didn't have cars, so if you wanted something, it had to be close. But that's not the world we live in now. So I think there's a major exercise here to say, we don't like the world as it is. We want to make it completely different. We're not going to just encourage it. We're going to demand it. I think to me, it's just planning run amok.
Planning run amok. Okay. Well, I just had my rant for the morning, and I'm probably not done yet. $1 billion. I mean, really at light speed here, $1 billion plan for electric buses. Promoted by the mayor and Catherine McKenna. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because, a year ago, John McGuinty was not in favor of electric buses, way too expensive to buy, too expensive to service, reliability issues. Then the mayor insisted on getting some for a pilot project because he promised it. Not because it made any kind of sense, but because he promised it. So we ordered 4. All right, let's see how they go. No, suddenly we've jumped from we've ordered 4 to see how they go to, we're going to replace every bus we've got with these things. Mm-hmm. Will they work in the winter? I don't know. Who knows?
Who knows? We'll find out, I guess, won't we?
Yeah, we'll find out for sure.
Yeah.
You would have thought that OC Transpo, the people at City Hall, would have learned a lesson from what happens when your transit system isn't reliable, because of all the trouble they had with the first part of LRT. I mean, it just caused chaos because it was unreliable, wouldn't run, weather issues. Now we're going to get a fleet of buses that may or may not run in the winter. And I'm sure they'll run for part of the time, but what happens when it gets extremely cold? How long will the battery charge be? But it's just irresistible to them because they see a whole lot of free money and then a loan of, I think, about $400 million at 1% interest. Who could turn that down? So we're getting all this free.
Yeah, air quotes. He's using air quotes there. Randall's using air quotes there.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's free because it's coming out of some other pocket of taxpayers, not the municipal taxpayer pocket. So looked at narrowly, you can say, what a great deal for the city, because we would have had to buy and replace buses and have a big capital program over this time. So we're getting a lot of our capital underwritten, no charge, and the rest of it, really cheap money. So in that way, it makes sense. But I think it's too unproven, it's too hasty, and the odds of it coming back to bite them are significant. I mean, a lot of people rely on transit, and thank God we had diesel buses when the LRT was not working, because at least those could get on the road and move people around. You get your whole system built on stuff that we hope will work. I don't know. It's just, I think it's a big gamble, I think, and I mostly blame the federal government, because this is something they want to point to. Right? Look at how green we are.
Yeah.
Look what we're doing in Ottawa. And of course, the mayor.
Greenest capital in the world. Greenest
capital in the world, right here. We haven't got a single bus on the road yet, but already we're, boasting on the greenest capital in the world. Yeah, how much are we going to reduce emissions relative to the cost? I mean, to me, that would be the critical.
Well, I looked that up. I figure it's approximately 1% of Ottawa's greenhouse gases will be reduced by this plan.
Well, there you are.
Yeah.
And for only $1 billion.
For $1 billion, yeah.
$100 billion, we can eliminate the entire problem.
There you go.
It's not 100% bad idea, but they haven't thought it through. Somebody's just throwing this offer at them. It's free money. We're taking it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Are you writing a book now?
I am, in fact. I'm writing the next book in my Chris Redner series.
Okay. Because I was thinking, the province is reopening, and we talked last year about how tough it was for local authors to get out and hawk their wares. So hopefully, maybe by July, August, September, maybe there'll actually be some fairs and festivals for writers, and they can get out and sell some books.
Yeah, I hope so. I was surprised and disappointed when Signatures, the big shows, people canceled their October show.
Oh, they have?
Cut their Christmas show from 10 days to 5. So that makes it very difficult for people who sell to those kind of venues. There's a wide range of artisans, and a lot of other things have been canceled that probably didn't need to be, just because, you just don't know. So
right, okay.
I get why people don't want to take that risk, but I think it's going to be another difficult year in that regard.
Okay. Thank you, Randall Denley. Always great to have you on our program, sir.
Okay, Rob. Appreciate the time.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, author and columnist Randall Denley. This is City News.
news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, June 17th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 17 degrees. In Smiths Falls, 16. And here's what's making news at this hour. Provincial Health Minister and Solicitor General will be among those giving the regular provincial update on COVID-19 this afternoon at 1. Before that, some anticipating a change in the second dose rollout of vaccines. There will be members of the Vaccine Distribution Task Force on hand at the regular briefing being held at 11:30 this morning. Now, this comes as Jim Watson tweeted this morning that Ottawa is over 75% vaccinated with at least one shot of COVID vaccine. The Ottawa mayor says it's great to see that enthusiasm in the city. Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International want the federal government to end the inhumane treatment of people in immigration and refugee protection by gradually ending immigration detention in Canada. The organization says Canada detains thousands of asylum seekers every year in often abusive conditions, leaving them handcuffed, shackled, and held with little or no contact with the outside world. Ottawa Humane Society offering a $5,000 reward now for catching the person or people responsible for torturing and killing cats. There have been 4 cats killed in the area bordered by Greenbank, Baseline, Merivale, and Hunt Club just since the start of this month. City News Time, 9:32. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
And 1310 AM.
Okay. This is why I love Thursdays. Ontario politics this week. Welcoming back Lindsay Maskell, Liberal strategist, former advisor to Dalton McGuinty. Good morning, Lindsay.
Good morning. I also love Thursday morning with you.
Ah, that's great. Andrew Brander, senior consultant with Crestview, former advisor to the Ford government. Good morning, Andrew.
Me too.
I hope you had a good birthday, Andrew. I hope you had a good birthday.
It was a week of birthday celebration.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much for remembering.
I'm glad you have recovered then from the birthday celebration.
I have.
Okay.
I have.
Well, there's so much to discuss. So why don't we launch right into it? He's gone and done it. Doug Ford used the notwithstanding clause, passed a bill that keeps in place election advertising spending limits for special interest groups. Lindsay Maskell, could this end up hurting Doug Ford in the end?
Well, it's, as we've talked about this before, it's tough because it's a process story. And when the notwithstanding clause, people don't understand how this use may affect them, but it's about what happens if they use it again. And it's about setting a dangerous precedent. So I think that people are concerned about it. I did hear more talk about it than I expected on the patios that we have since visited with reopening. But I think when it was such a process story, people were not that interested. But at the same time, it was tough to, it's those of us that have worked at Queen's Park and people that are invested in that sort of parliamentary procedure to kind of, sort of like watching a car accident, but without a body. It was really tough to watch. So I do think that there are going to be some consequences, but I think the issue will be that it's unfortunately not over this particular issue. It will be, when is it used again?
Okay. So last week when we were all together, Lindsay, I asked, is it a bubble story? What you call a process story? Is it for, basically policy geeks like us? But you're saying when you're out and about, you heard people talking about it. So it could maybe and this is one thing that pollsters often ask people, are you even aware of the issue? Do you know about this issue? And you think it has registered somewhat, you think?
Yeah,
Lindsay,
it definitely, yeah. I mean, Andrew, you may have an opinion or have looked at polling, but I do think that there is, I think in the sense that it's also a time where more people are watching more news and more invested because of it's the way we get our COVID information, that I do think it registered more than it might have in another time.
Okay. What do you think, Andrew?
I think Lindsay and I are hanging out at different patios. Quite honestly, look, I mean, people haven't seen each other for here in Toronto, at least. Coming up 7 or 8 months, right? So, when people are getting together, I think they're talking about different things. To the question of
they're lamenting the Leafs and stuff. I'm missing the Blue Jays, wondering why the Blue Jays aren't in it.
Toronto's got this great parking lot that they've transformed into a share space that I've frequented, and this week they're showing the World Cup. Everyone's watching that. People don't seem to be talking about this, and they seem to be getting into the reopening and summer spirit. But I will concede to Lindsay on this that the problem here, certainly I would agree, is the precedent it sets. However, I do think there's a little bit of, for lack of a better word, fear-mongering around that. The Premier's had the opportunity for the last 3 years to use this. He's talked about it before, but hasn't used it before. I'd be surprised if really there's anything in the next year where he decides to use it again. But if he does, then I think Lindsay's point is fair at that point, and people can make their judgments on that at that time. However, when you were asking about is it a bubble story, is it a process story, I still think it is. I don't think we're going to be talking about this next week, especially if we're seeing a cabinet shuffle in the next week, if we're seeing the reopening of phase 2 moved up in the next week. Right. These are the types of things that will probably
they'll take over the news cycle.
Away. Exactly.
Yeah, I would agree there. Okay, so let's turn away from that story and into something entirely different. I want to talk a little bit about what I would call the reinvention of Patrick Brown. So we all remember the story. I remember Lindsay was on the air with me the very next day. We were all kind of stunned and shocked to remember Lindsay. Mm-hmm. I mean, you had a young man on track to become Ontario's next premier, totally derailed by allegations of improper sexual conduct. And it looked like a political career had come to an abrupt halt. Nevertheless, he picked himself up. I guess you could say he dusted himself off, and he headed over to Brampton, where, as I understand it, he did not live. Put his name down for the race for mayor, and he won. Okay.
Against Linda Jeffrey, sitting mayor, former Liberal cabinet minister.
So it has been reported in the past that Patrick Brown is not the kind of guy who would be content being a mayor, that he's more politically ambitious than that. So both of you are in Southern Ontario, maybe have a better sense of it than we would here in Eastern Ontario. But Lindsay, what's your sense of how Patrick Brown has performed as mayor of Brampton? And could you see him running for a higher office again in the future, provincially or federally? He was an MP for a long time, but give us a sense of it, the Patrick Brown reinvention here.
So he was a councillor before being an MP, so I do think he does have a love of municipal politics as well. I will say the thing that I love about the story, and not so much the reinvention, but about voters, is, how at some point we all want to be seen in a whole new light. And the fact that people gave Patrick Brown a second chance. Mm-hmm. We should be clear, those allegations were dropped. People were definitely too quick a rush to judgment that day when he was being, chased down the stairs. Yeah. And it chased
down the stairs into the vehicle. Their vehicle speeds off. Everything.
Yeah, it was
crazy.
Very dramatic for it to turn out to a case that didn't add up to as much as people thought it was going to be. and maybe makes people think about a bit of due process there, may have resulted in a very different situation than we're in right now with Doug Ford. But I will say this, first of all, the mayors west of Toronto have been doing an amazing job through COVID. So that includes Oakville, Bonnie Crombie, and Patrick Brown. And, I was saying to your producer, I'm so conflicted because, Patrick Brown is speaking my language and liking my tweets because he is running a very hardcore campaign now as he's continued to influence the government to make decisions about important things like targeting hotspots and the workplace outbreaks that were happening at many of the manufacturing and distribution facilities in Brampton, and really speaking up for his constituents as mayor and getting action on it. And now his most recent campaign is about an issue close to my heart, which is, of course, I am 244 days since I last had a haircut. And as all of those...
Not that you're counting, Lindsay.
Not that I'm counting, October 17th, 2020. But he is, out there championing these small businesses managed by women, fighting the premier on it. And, he is definitely someone who, in a crisis, has risen to the occasion. But I think this was always in Patrick Brown, right? He did have, he took an unfortunate hit of what some people think was a full coup on his leadership about 3 months before a provincial election that he was going to win.
What's your sense of it? This sort of political comeback, if you will, of Patrick Brown's. Andrew?
I think, in short, what Lindsay was saying there was that he's grown up. When I was on the Hill, he was sort of known as this hockey bro kind of image. And look, he's grown up. He's got a family now. He's got 2 kids. His haircut even makes him look like more of an adult right now. Yeah. And to Lindsay's point, he's an adult in the room, while other mayors have been running around dramatic, fanning flames of panic. He's been calm, consistent, and a reasonable voice. I see bigger and better things for him in the future. I think he just needs to run the calculations of where that success could be. Could he win an Ontario leadership again? I'm not sure, enough times passed, but could he win a Conservative leadership where Ontario only counts for a third of the vote? Yes, he could.
Like a federal leadership, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Really? Conservative Party of Canada?
I think so. And every move he has made has been calculated and political. Yeah. I would say what I actually look to is the last Conservative leadership. He put an organization that he has built to work for Peter MacKay in that last Conservative leadership. He tested the limits of what he had built, not only in Ontario, not only in Brampton, but out west as well, where he's Alberta was really interesting to watch because it was sort of this pseudo battle, very internally, of course, but between Jason Kenney organizing for O'Toole and Patrick Brown, who was organizing for MacKay, and having these communities see who could sell memberships, who could win those ridings. And I think what Patrick was able to prove through that is that he has considerable reach well beyond the borders of Brampton. But I mean, this guy hustles. We talked about it. We talked about it before. Maybe where he was rushing that day when he ran down the stairs was just to move on to the next thing, quite frankly. February 2018, this guy,
I'll never forget that. Holy cow.
Guy runs down the stairs. 6 months, almost 6 months later, He uproots his entire life he spent in Barrie, moves to one of the most diverse communities in Ontario, where he had virtually no connections, and defeated the incumbent mayor. Like, this guy works really, really hard.
Yeah. But he has deep connections to the Indo-Canadian community.
Yes,
right.
For sure.
That is the big, and that's his national profile that he has as well, right? Across Canada, and with the President India Modi, his relationship with him. It's very widespread. So I mean,
he's 43. He's a young guy. He's only 43. Do you think he's gonna? Do you see him like the municipal elections are next year? Everybody's wondering what Mayor Watson's going to do in Ottawa. I wonder is he going to run again? Do you think in Brampton? Or?
I think he's going to run again in Brampton because he does need to. He's not going to run. Obviously, the first election is about 350 days away. That is the opportunity, but he's not in that race. And I think he will want to sort of say, I'm serious. I'm here in this community, and have that position to build upon before seeing what his next move is. It's not that I think, the political cycle moves a lot faster, as we know. It's not that he hasn't sort of paid his dues or done his time for the penalty box that a lot of Conservatives put him into. But there just isn't that opportunity right now. And so, as you said, the advantage is he's young and he can be in a good sit and wait position continue to build his profile.
Okay. Anything to add there, Andrew? Or?
I mean, the only thing I'd add is we'll have to see what happens with an anticipated federal election in the fall. But politics is all about timing. This guy, Patrick, has been extremely ambitious before and proved people wrong. So I mean, we'll see what happens with the federal election. But if the result there is not the result that Tories are looking for, and they're less forgiving
they are.
For that.
They sure are.
There could be an opportunity sooner than people think.
Isn't that interesting? That's some great inside information there, Andrew. Okay, so when we come back, we'll turn our attention to some Ottawa races, if you don't mind. A year away from the election. It's Ontario Politics This Week with Lindsay, Maskell, Andrew Brander. I'm Rob Snow. This is City News.
I wanted to give gifts to my volunteers, so I started making, I knew this is a skill I had, so I made chocolate that had cultural based with a teaching, because culture here is not just a little part, it's the large part, it's the fundamental part of our organization. So then we started doing, just little programs, and we sell a few at a fair. And then we started getting contracts. People were starting to enjoy the chocolates, and started getting more and more contracts all across Canada. Then we decided to become a social enterprise, and we were able to create 2 jobs. And Val is one of our chocolatiers, very talented. We were able to help her with employment.
We started just with a little bit in the kitchen, doing a little bit of chocolate together, and next thing, it's just kind of taken off. And it's great, because I love to be creative, and we get to create a lot and make up stuff, and it's just I just love it. It's just great that we get to make money back for Wabano, and it's helping me out, and we're helping just everybody out, Wabano and everything.
We met a very socially conscious business owner being around town, and we decided to partner, because beans and chocolate, coffee and chocolate are sort of created the same way, and there's and they're very one origin bean, so it was a good pairing together. And it's been a fantastic partnership for both of us.
I was fortunate enough to get introduced to Purat the head of Wabano Fine Chocolates, through a local networking group. And I was completely intrigued by the social enterprise that she was running, and then I looked at what we were doing, trying to support local business and supporting local communities, and it was a perfect match, and it's been fantastic ever since.
We make every batch by hand. We temper it by hand to get to the consistency it needs to be to make a good chocolate. And one of the best, also wonderful things we did, we've connected with Ed, with being around town, and our coffee bars have been amazing hit. So we're really excited about the connection with our coffee.
The opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Part 2, Ontario politics this week with Lindsay Maskell, Liberal strategist, former advisor to Premier McGuinty, Andrew Brander, senior consultant with Crestview, former advisor to the Ford government. Okay. What local races will you be watching, Andrew, on election night? I know you used to live in Ottawa, and you'll be watching them. I know.
I certainly will be watching. There's look, I think that all parties have a different strategy for Ottawa. Of course, the Liberals are exceptionally strong in the capital, in the NCR. Almost half of their caucus comes from the region.
Yeah. Even when they're getting wiped out from one end of the province to the other, we still love them here.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. So I think the Liberals are going to use this next election as a building strategy. I think they're going to be targeting the seats that the NDP hold in the area, a seat like Ottawa Centre. Yep. They're going to be looking at, obviously, a few of them that were pretty close last time. And for the PCs, I think they're just gonna look to hang on to what they have there. But there were some extremely close races last time. I think especially of Ottawa West Nepean. The Liberal candidate there last time, of course, Bob Chiarelli. I don't know if you've gotten any further clarification on what he's planning on doing.
I think he's running for mayor. I think he's going to run for mayor. Yeah.
He almost confirmed it on your show the other week,
yes,
right?
He did. Yeah. Pretty much.
So,
yeah.
We'll see if but if he doesn't go municipally, does he try again for that seat? Does he make a comeback? And also, I think there's going to be a really, really good opportunity for the Liberals to win that Ottawa Centre seat. I think that one looks very, very promising for them.
You know, I think back. I mean, that was to me was an upset.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I did not expect Yasser Naqvi would lose, but he did. To Joel Harden. And I think I don't know who's going to be running there for the Liberals, but I know they desperately love to get that one back, Ottawa Centre. And, of course, that's Catherine McKenna's riding federally. So, right? What do you think, Lindsay? Ottawa Centre, what do you think?
Well, it's an interesting riding because, in 2007, without redistribution, that would have been a really tough, numbers-wise, a really tough re-election for Yasser, and he actually only was reelected by 2,000 votes. So it actually is a riding that has a very big, strong NDP base. Yeah. But, something we have talked about in the past is the NDP underperforming in this term, and some of these, the Ottawa backbenchers have really not gotten any profile. So it definitely makes it tough for them. But those are two prime ridings that lots of people would be high profile people would be very interested in. Something I kind of have enjoyed watching is, because the time that I worked at Queen's Park, Lisa McLeod was there the whole time. And if I was her having to give out, the bad news of everything being canceled and your event's not on and all of those issues, I would be very nervous by the candidate that I like to think of some of these candidates, we call them like they'll keep you at home. So somebody like a strong speaker that can rally support in other ridings and travel and do those sort of things during an election. Lisa MacLeod even might have to be at home a lot more when she has a 30-year-old nurse who's, emergency room nurse who's out vaccinating everybody with Ottawa Public Health, right? So that is one strong campaign move against you. So there's some interesting races, even where it's not, where you'd think, she's had the seat for 15 years. But sometimes that complacency, you can get a real young, exciting person running.
Let me. I'm sorry to interrupt, Lindsay, but our time is tight. So I want to ask you what your experience is. Let's start with you, Andrew. On somebody crosses the floor. Okay, you elected me. In the case of Amanda Samarda, you elected me 4 years ago as a progressive conservative. But I was so mad at Doug Ford on Franco-Ontarian issues, I left the PC party and I'm sitting as a Liberal. Can she sell that to people in GPR and say, elect me as a Liberal, do you think? What do you think?
I think Ms. Smart has a very strong local connection to the riding. The Tories are going to, when I say the Tories want to hang on to the seats they hold, they consider that one of them. So the Tories will put up a strong contender, and it's going to come down to and they're going to target the seat. They're going to go after it hard, and they are going to try and win that back and put that back in the Tory column. But they have to make sure, especially in a riding with GPR, that they're doing it with someone with ties as strong to the local community as Ms. Smart has.
Okay. In a minute or less, Lindsay.
Yeah, she has, she is a strong, smart young woman who has really deep roots in that community and is campaigning, has had a good chunk of time since the crossing the floor to convince them that she's there doing the right thing for them. It's a tough thing to do because they're going to do things that's going to make it look very personal. So that's always dangerous ground when you're basically trying to campaign against yourself in those situations. So I think she's going to hold on to her seat.
Okay. It's fun, isn't it, to talk about? Nevertheless, even though we're a year away, we'll see how everything plays out. Okay. To both of you, thank you again for the conversation this morning. Keep that celebration going, Andrew. Okay. Have one for me. Bye-bye. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye. That's Ontario Politics This Week with Lindsay Maskell, Andrew Brander. I'm Rob Snow. Talkback Hour coming up next. $1 billion. The $1 billion electric bus ride. I need your take on that right after the news on City News.
WW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 101.1 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, June 17th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 16 degrees, 17 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The federal government is investing $85 million to build 12 new emergency shelters across Canada. That'll be done over the next 5 years.
These shelters will support Indigenous women and children and 2S LGBTQIA+ people escaping family violence, and will add 124 new units to the existing network of shelters specifically committed to these populations.
The Minister for Families, Ahmed Hussein, says the feds will also provide $10 million each year afterwards to maintain or build new shelters. Indigenous Services also providing more than $40 million over the next 5 years to pay for the operating costs of those shelters. COVID case count continues to fall. We'll have the latest numbers for you coming up shortly. In Ontario, vaccines are flowing. The push is on for the provincial government to move up the reopening benchmark. But some health experts are pointing to the UK as a bit of a cautionary tale. Here's City News reporter Jamie Pulfer.
The Health Minister and Solicitor General are set to give an update on the Ford government's vaccination plan at 1 o'clock. It comes as cases drop and vaccination rates rise, fueling calls for Ontario to move into stage 2 earlier. Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown is pushing for that. Toronto Mayor John Tory on Breakfast Television.
I joined the other mayors earlier this week on Monday in saying that the province should be continuously reviewing the numbers. I mean, they put forward a plan this time which had certain elements, and then you can't start taking the plan apart.
Health experts are watching the UK closely, where the Delta variant is the dominant strain. Cases are rising, forcing reopening plans to be pushed back. Experts say we're about a month behind the UK when it comes to this variant. Dr. Peter Uni on the province's science advisory table tells the Toronto Star the next 2 weeks will be crucial in determining how we do against Delta. I'm Jamie Pulfer.
Now, Ontario today is reporting 370 new COVID-19 cases today, along with 7 more deaths. Now, the positive cases come from just over 30,400 tests that were completed. The percent positive, though, has dropped today to 1.3%. City News Time 10:03. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Warmer air on the way after a chilly start this morning. Plenty of sunshine, some afternoon cloud. We'll get into a west wind, and some areas will warm to near 27 degrees. Tonight, partly cloudy, 14. And tomorrow, we'll have increasing cloud. Light rain arrives in the afternoon. The high again, though, about 27. For today, the high, 27.
And right now in Ottawa, 16 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it's 17. City News Time at 10:04. Rafael Nadal will not be playing in either Wimbledon or the Tokyo Olympics.
Rafa says he's been listening to his body, and his body says take a break. In his words, the idea is to prolong his career and continue to do what makes him happy. That is, to compete at the highest level. He recently reached the French Open semis this month, but lost to rival Djokovic. The Spaniard's taken the title twice at Wimbledon. He's also won the Olympic gold medal in singles at the 2008 Games in Beijing. Tom Rivers, ABC News at the Foreign Desk.
And the trend of removing sponsor bottles at the European Championship media briefings, started by Cristiano Ronaldo. UEFA has now asked teams to stop doing that. Ronaldo, Paul Pogba, and Manuel Locatelli have all removed sponsor bottles away from the view of cameras. The 2020 Euro tournament, the beer sponsor and Coca-Cola had their bottles removed. UEFA says it reminded the 24 teams to respect the sponsors and the contributions they have made to European soccer. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
The $1 billion electric bus ride. I am putting you in charge of the city of Ottawa, okay? You are in charge of the city of Ottawa. You run the place, okay? The whole city. It's all yours. Congratulations, okay? $1 billion falls from the sky. Just falls from the sky. You're sitting there in the dictator's office one day, and it just falls from the sky. Poof, lands on the desk. There it is. And now you have $1 billion, but you have to use it to make life better in Ottawa. $1 billion, okay? A lot of money. You could do a lot of good with $1 billion in the city of Ottawa. Cure a lot of ails. What would you spend the money on? 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. You have $1 billion. You can spend it on anything to make life better in Ottawa. $1 billion. What would you spend the money on? It's your decision because you're in charge. I put you in charge. You didn't even have to run an election. You didn't have to run against Jim Watson or Bob Girelli. You're in charge. You're calling the shots. What would you spend it on? And would you spend it on 450 electric buses? Would you spend it on 450 electric buses? Because that's what your city councilor is going to do. Is going to spend it on 450 electric buses. That's what the mayor's going to do. Spend it on 450 electric buses. And what do you think about that decision? What do you think of that decision? I'm still gobsmacked, my idol. $1 billion on 450 electric buses. $2.2 million per bus. Okay? It's not a COVID story, but it's still an important story. It's an important local story. I think we should talk about it. 750-1310. 750-1310. 613-750-1310. I'd love to hear from you. You don't call. Don't worry. I have lots that I want to say about this issue this morning, the $1 billion electric bus ride. Green at any cost. Green no matter the cost. Let's get some opinions on this big local issue right now. $1 billion for electric buses for the city of Ottawa. $1 billion, $1 billion, $1 billion. That is still a lot of money, right? Still a lot of money. Especially for buses. A huge sum of money for buses. Sailed through the Transit Commission yesterday. No big surprise. And the same thing, you trust me, is going to happen next week when it goes before the entire city council. And we'll be on our way. Greenest capital in the world. Greenest capital in the world. Yay for us. We'll be on our way to what? Well, but in all seriousness, we're on our way to, well, we don't know what, do we? Only time will tell. And fingers crossed that we have picked the right vehicle, the right technology. To me, it is very much a roll of the dice. Now, I want to say something right from the get-go. Because when I question projects like this, the frequent criticism that is flung at me is, well, you know, Rob, that he's a Neanderthal. He hates anything that's green. I am not against the electric vehicle revolution. Not at all. It is obvious, okay? It's plain as day. It's clear. That's the way the industry is moving. It's the way the world is moving. I'm not against advancements in technology. I look at the advancements in electric vehicle technology just the last 10 years. It's actually, I mean, it's breathtaking to behold. It's very exciting, actually. I suspect I'll probably buy one more gas-powered car, but that'll be the last one I probably ever buy. I suspect once I beat that one to death after 7 or 8 years, and I go to buy a new one, they probably won't even sell gas-powered vehicles anymore, and the only option will be an electric car, and that's fine with me. A lot of the big automakers, it is their intention. They've been clear. Sooner rather than later, they're not even going to build build gas-powered vehicles anymore. They're going all electric. So it's not about me not liking things that are green. Oh, there's Snow, the dinosaur. He just wants to keep polluting the planet. No, that's not the issue is the money. $1 billion is a lot of money for a city of 1 million people to spend greening the public transit fleet. I mean, again, I come back to this. We just went through a debate about a $3 million tax break for a car dealership, and lots of people were lighting their hair on fire. A few $1 million for a car dealer. I mean, sinful. You've got to be kidding me. And what did you hear? Think of all the good we could do in the community with that money. You would swear, the way the left was talking, the money that was going to build that new dealership would have ended poverty in our time, the way they were talking. Well, how about $1 billion, $1,000 million for buses? At a time, I would point out, when the future of public transit ridership has never been more uncertain. We don't have any idea what ridership levels are going to be for OC Transpo in the future. Nobody can tell you. John Manconi doesn't know. He doesn't know. You know why? He can't even guess, because we don't even know when public servants are going to go back to work downtown. If ever. But in a matter of a week, we have gone from a plan to have a few electric buses, doing a pilot program, to spending $1 billion for 450 buses. And I keep coming back to this because it's such a nice round number, isn't it? $1 billion, $1 billion, $1 billion. I just think of all the good work we could do in the city with that kind of money. If $3 million would cure all that ails the city, what about $1 billion? Green, great. Green, fine and dandy. But come on. At any cost? I guess when it comes to this bunch at Ottawa City Hall, I guess so. Paul in Ottawa, you're on City News. Paul?
You stole my main point. Why are we deciding to spend this money now when we don't know what type of transit system we're going to need and what the demand's going to be? It makes no sense whatsoever. And not to mention that $1 billion is a lot of money. I know I'm repeating what you said, but I think you really summed it up there. Those are two really, really strong points. I'll add in that our track record on handling transportation projects in the city sucks. It's really bad. Okay. Yeah,
fair enough, sir. Yeah. Fair enough. The record speaks for itself, doesn't it? Yes.
And I'm sorry, maybe I'm too paranoid here, but I'm like, why are they rushing this through? Like why now? And I worry that there's corruption behind this deal.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but
is it? Hold on, Rob. Is that really am I really going too far there, or am I just seeing money being spent like there's no tomorrow?
Well, I don't know if it's corruption. It's certainly politically expedient. There's a federal election coming up. Catherine McKenna's doing an announcement every day. She's the infrastructure minister. She's making a funding announcement every day now, right? Last week it's electric buses. Yesterday it's the LRT station at the airport. If there's another one today. I don't know what it is today, but...
And I'll bring up another fear.
Sure.
You say $1 billion?
Yeah, $1 billion, yeah.
Yeah? You want to put money on whether it's going to be $1 billion or whether it's going to go over budget?
Who knows?
Our track record is, honestly speaking, if we go back and look at the numbers, the way this is playing out, is it unreasonable to say that when it's all said and done, it's going to cost us $2 billion? I don't think that's a crazy thing to say.
Well, $400 million of it, let's not forget, is a loan. So that will have to be paid back with interest, right? So, yeah.
Of course. How much debt can Ottawa take? Under our current mayor, if you look at the debt that we've taken on, it's insane. And when I have an email exchange with this gentleman, he's like, we're not allowed to have debt. We don't have debt.
Well, we have debt because the consolidated financial statements were out last week. Were presented to City Council last week. I can tell you right down to the dollar what the debt is in the city. It's $2.4 billion. The city is $2.4 billion.
I will send you the email exchange with it. He says, no, we don't have debt. We're not allowed as a city to carry debt. We have, and his explanation, and if you ever have a chance, you can ask more detail of it, we cost it out to carry it. But, when we look at the track record of them on that, they're making up the numbers as they go along.
All right, so $1 billion falls from the sky. Are you spending it on electric buses?
No.
No. Okay. Thank you, Paul. All right. I want to take one more before we stop here, Dave. To Nepean, a wonderful place to be in. Richard.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well, Richard. How are you?
I'm doing good.
$1 billion. $1 billion falls from the sky, Richard. Okay, and you run not just the city of Nepean, which used to be debt-free. You run the city of Ottawa. Okay, think of all the good you can do with $1 billion. What are you spending $1 billion on, Richard? Are you spending it on electric buses? Are you spending it on electric buses, Richard?
Yeah, I'm not really sure if I would 100% spend it all on electric buses, but I do think that Ottawa spending a fair amount of money on electric buses and trying to electrify our entire fleet is a good thing to do. I mean, OC Transpo in 2015, 2016 posted to their website fact section that they were using about 50 million liters of diesel fuel every year, which if you take in the account of diesel today to that's about $50 million a year in diesel costs alone. Now, it's a 100% true fact that driving an electric vehicle per kilometer is much cheaper than driving a gasoline or diesel or anything else at the moment. So that right there is a massive savings. Then on top of that, you've got no oil changes, less brake changes, no spark plugs to check, no exhaust system. So all of this less maintenance makes for a massive savings every year. Probably, I would guess, upwards of probably $30 million. $30 million a year. And then on top of that, you're making neighborhoods quieter. Having a bus roll through your neighborhood the first few buses of the day at 5:30, 6 in the morning, or 11 at night, being nice and quiet instead of loud, or rush hour sitting beside a bus.
Sounds divine. Sounds divine. Sounds divine, sir. Sounds divine. So $1 billion worth? $1 billion worth? $1 billion worth, sir?
But if you're saving, 30, 40 million, $20 million a year every year, and you have to remember too that a lot of that money that they're spending right now is on the infrastructure to be able to charge the buses, which will be in place for long after many of these buses that we're purchasing now are at the end of life or getting new batteries, right? They're also not buying all these buses all at once. They'll be replacing the current fleet as we need to replace them anyway.
Well, it's going to be 450 buses over the next 6 years, sir.
Yeah.
That's moving pretty fast to me.
Definitely. Okay. But we're also due to replace a fair amount of our buses in the next few years anyway. So, I mean, while I'm not sure that, spending $1 billion on it is definitely needed,
right.
There is cause to say that spending a lot of money on something as big of a project as this can have a good effect on the city and its residents, and also kind of be another pinnacle for Ottawa to hang its hat on. We are the capital city. So why shouldn't we be leading Canada when it comes to green infrastructure? You know what I mean? Like, we're the capital of Canada. So it does make sense that we're the leader of something other than just boondoggling things.
All right. Okay. Well, okay, Richard. Okay. Thank you. Okay. 2 calls. 1, a big fat no. 1, a giant yes. Sign me up. Can't sign me up fast enough. What about you? $1 billion for electric buses. 1019 Rob Snow Show. Talk back hour on City News.
I'm blessed to be married to someone who is a scientist and spent a lot of time following what was happening over in China ahead of time. So he did give us the heads up that this was coming. Not that we believed him right off the bat, but when it did happen very, very quickly, we were prepared. We had hand sanitizer and we were set up to not close our doors. So we locked the kitchen down at Wellington Street, but we left this kitchen open. We put in protocols immediately. We only allowed our very small crew of 4 or 5 people in at the time. No deliveries were allowed to come in or out of the building without, they just weren't allowed in and out of the building. So we met them at the loading dock and had very strict protocols in place right away. We had masks and hand sanitizer and the whole thing. So we're very lucky from that perspective, and we're able to, learn as we went as far as doing small, individually packed caterings the frozen soup program, Food for the Ottawa Mission. So we didn't have to close the kitchen and then learn how to reopen it. We just were able to modify and shift as we needed to. Because of our partnership with the Ottawa Mission, we were able to very quickly help support them. They were able to send us some product and some supplies, so it wasn't a burden on our business, and we were able to supply the staffing and the packaging to help produce that when they needed it the most. And we produced about 1,400 meals a week to complement their meals, and we started our soup program right away. We realized very quickly that there was a need in the community to get together and all work together, not only to support local, but also just to support all the people that were suddenly in a position of, being locked down and not being able to get out. So by starting that soup program, our community, our clients got online and started making donations for the soups, and we were able to produce the soups and get them back out to people that needed it. We're right now currently making 150 liters of soup per week, but we've made, I would say, 5,000 or 6,000, easily since the pandemic. Probably more. I'd have to do the math, but lots. I think everybody in the city has to be very aware of how blessed we were to have great weather this summer and people were able to get out and about, and that's going to shift. So we do have to be much more aware of who our most vulnerable is, and I really think we have to work together as groups. There are so many organizations in the city that are doing something and contributing and working together, and I think it doesn't matter who, but see what you can do to just step up and help them, whatever it is, whether it's driving or delivering food, or someone has extra zucchini in their garden, or if they can afford to donate some money to any of these organizations. I just think we all have to work together. We're smarter and wiser than we were the first time.
It's time to talk back.
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
I kind of keep circling back to this, the debate we had on this radio station about the grant to Mark Motors $3 million tax break over 10 years, because a lot of people were upset about that. That $3 million, think of all the good in the city we could do with $3 million. Well, this is $1 billion. Okay? So I would just ask my left-wing friends, what can we do about homelessness in the city with just a tiny bit of that $1 billion that will instead go to buying electric buses, okay? Or take your pick, right? More affordable housing. Imagine the dent we could make in the repair backlog for the city's stock of social housing, but we're not spending anywhere close to $1 billion on fixing up a social housing stock that's been in disrepair for as long as I've lived in Ottawa. We haven't made any progress on the wait time to actually get a unit in social housing. I moved to Ottawa 30 years ago. The wait time to get a unit in social housing was 10 years. Here it is, year 2021. Well, the wait time's still 10 years to get into social housing. Put your name on the wait list to get into Ottawa community housing today. Someone will call you in the year 2031. How about better living conditions in long-term care? The city operates 4 long-term care homes. And I could go on, right? I could go on in that vein. That's why $1 billion falls from the sky. Do you spend it all on electric buses? Steve, Ottawa. Good morning, Steve.
Hey, Rob. How are you?
Good, sir. Thank you. $1 billion, okay, Steve. So you're running the city. $1 billion falls from the sky. You're running the city. What are you doing with it?
All right. First of all, I'd like to open the last caller's eyes a little bit.
Okay.
Globally, we've spent $6 trillion since 2000 on green agenda stuff, and the emissions have gone up. So it's clearly not working.
Okay. All right.
But as far as first thing I'd do if I had $1 billion in Ottawa, I would move the experimental farm to the East Coast. Take some good jobs out there, and then I'd sell most of the property off. Well, I'd put the $1 billion, then I'd build about probably 10 skyscrapers. Solve the whole housing issue.
Okay.
I'd build them right along Fallowfield, right next to the bus station, and right along Baseline Road, right in the experimental farm there. And then after that, I'd sell off the rest of the experimental farm property for probably $1 billion to developers, and then I could buy the buses. So that would make sense.
Okay. All right, Steve. But you're not a big fan of electric buses, I'm guessing.
Well, it's kind of stupid, right?
Well,
I mean,
I want to have the discussion, Steve. So at least somebody is in this city is going to have the discussion about this, because they don't seem interested in having the discussion at City Hall. It sails through the Transit Commission, and next week it'll be around to yeas and nays at City Hall. So
why aren't they building snowmobile trails on all the streets too? Because,
make no mistake, Steve. Make no mistake, Steve. Make no mistake. There's a federal election coming up. You wait until you see the money that goes to the snowmobile clubs. You wait until you see.
Well, I think they should be putting those on the roads too, right?
Oh, you wait and see. That was Steve, I got to run here, but the Harper government had a thing. It had some internal public opinion research. People who ride snowmobiles will vote Conservative if you put money into the snowmobile trails. The Liberals have totally co-opted this, especially in the West Quebec ridings. Like up in the Pontiac, you would not believe the money they are pouring into snowmobile clubs for all over the place. I mean, huge money, tens of millions of dollars. Somebody should blow the lid off of that thing. Diane and let's not get too off track. Diane in Stittsville.
Hi, Rob.
Hi,
well, I'll add to the last caller. There were 300 coal plants built in 2020. We are 1.6% of the world global emissions. Okay, so 1,000 million.
Yes.
Here's what I would put it on.
All right.
Our police chief, after the 4 murders 2 or 3 weeks ago, he said we need more money to help those people. Right? We need to help them.
Okay.
So we need more boys and girls clubs. We need more charities.
Like crime prevention programs to stop people from getting into the gang life, you mean? Is that what you mean, Diane? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Crime prevention. So,
yes.
okay.
And then I'm mentioning the mission, but all of those 35, 40 people that help our community, the food bank and all them.
Yeah, sure. Social services, right?
They need more money.
Yeah.
And you already mentioned the housing for the homeless.
Yeah, affordable housing, supportive housing. Yeah.
So definitely, I'm not putting. Oh, and I think it was Hubley the other day said that when it's really hot, like 30 degrees Celsius, the buses aren't going to go that far if they have the air conditioning on, and if it's minus 30. Or minus 20 is probably
well,
more
Mr. Mann, here's the thing, and this has been experienced in other cities where they've tried out these electric buses, and in some places it hasn't gone over very well. I'll talk about that after the news.
Okay,
they have installed diesel heater/AC systems on the bus, which means they're not even zero emissions. They have a diesel heater on them, for crying out loud. It's ridiculous. Thank you, Diane. Okay,
thanks,
be back after the news. Halftime talk back hour, 750-1310. Green at any cost, the $1 billion electric bus ride. Are we being taken for a ride? This is the Rob Snow Show, City News.
This hour of the Rob Snow Show is brought to you by Cardinal Planning. Protect your in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, June 17th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 17 degrees. In Smiths Falls, 16. And here's what's making news this hour. Ontario reporting 370 more COVID-19 cases today and 7 more deaths. Just over 30,400 tests were completed with a positive rate of 1.3%. Now, 34 of these new cases are in Ottawa. Yesterday, there were also just over 210,600 vaccine doses administered. Health Minister Christine Elliott says that was an incredible day. Over 75% of Ontario residents over the age of 18 have now received at least one shot of vaccine. Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson tweeting his thanks to the people of Ottawa for going over that threshold. He says it is great to see that enthusiasm. A warning from the Ottawa Humane Society to keep outdoor cats in for the time being. 4 cats have been killed so far this month in the west end of the city. Humane Society is offering a $5,000 reward now for information to police leading to the person or people responsible. In an effort to create more safe space for Indigenous women and children and LGBTQ2+ people, the federal government is putting forward more than $125 million. This will create 12 new emergency shelters right across Canada. City News Time, 10:32. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
It's $1 billion electric bus ride. Come along for the ride. Gauging your reaction to the city's decision to be made official next week, count on it, bank on it, to spend $1 billion on 450 electric buses, $2.2 million per bus. 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. I've done some reading about this. What the experience has been in some other communities where they have had electric buses. Okay, there have been some problems. Albuquerque, New Mexico. Do they have winter there? Albuquerque, New Mexico? Anyway, they had big public transit dreams. First, they wanted to do LRT. They changed their minds, hit a reset button, I guess you could say. Instead, opted for bus rapid transit. They were going to do a $135 million plan, and part of the money was supposed to be electric buses made in China. It didn't work out so well. So many problems, they ended up suing the manufacturer. The range of the buses wasn't long enough. The buses wouldn't charge fast enough. They actually ended up sending them back, and they bought diesel buses brand new from New Flyer. And I mean, that's a Sun Belt city. Okay. Now, Minneapolis, Dave, what do you think, Dave? They probably get winter there. I would suspect Minneapolis, Minnesota. You would think they probably get winter there.
A little bit of winter.
Been known to happen. So 2018, that city says, we will not buy any more diesel buses. We are green and clean in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We're not going to buy any more diesel buses after the year 2022. We're going to start. Does this sound familiar at all? The transition.
Eerily familiar.
To electric buses. They wanted to begin 8 buses. 60-footers made by New Flyer in nearby St. Cloud, Minnesota. Made in America. They had issues, not so much with the buses, but with the charging infrastructure. Now, an electric bus is basically a pylon without charging infrastructure. Quoting here from the Minneapolis Star Tribune, the city's local newspaper of record. The first electric buses were rolled out to great fanfare in 2019. Can't you just picture it? You know, we would have our own version of it, right? Councillor Tierney with a big smile on his face.
We did it.
The system soon encountered issues with charging equipment. On Tuesday, the electric chargers overheated, resulting in all 8 buses being sidelined. Cold climates like Minnesota's can also sap electric vehicle charges. The plan adopted 3 years ago called for half of the area's new rapid transit buses to be electric, but Metro Transit officials now say electric buses are, quote, not a good fit.
Not a good fit.
The new lines cover too much territory. Establishing a network of charging stations is challenging. It goes on. It's too long, said Brian Funk, Metro Transit's Deputy Chief Operating Officer of Buses. They do not fit the profile. We are still committed to an electric bus program, said the general manager. We know the technology is going to improve, but our peers in other cities are having the same experience. Our peers in other cities. Okay, our peers in other cities. $1 billion, 450 electric buses. Duluth, Minnesota. I bet you they get winter there too. Okay, small city. Wikipedia says 85,000 people live in Duluth, Minnesota. And in 2015, the Duluth Transit Authority was awarded a $6.3 million federal grant to run a pilot project involving electric buses. How would they work in the climate of Duluth, Minnesota? Price tag for each electric bus, $900,000 US. Okay? It's called the Duluth Transit Authority, or the DTA. It collaborated with the manufacturers of the bus to come up with an electric bus made for Duluth, the climate of Duluth, Minnesota. Okay? 2018, 7 new electric buses. Quote, David, 2 months after their unveiling, all 7 buses were pulled from the fleet.
No. The specialty made ones.
Yeah.
Didn't work.
Their braking systems were struggling on hills. A software problem was causing them to roll back when accelerating uphill from a standstill.
Software problem.
Cold weather was causing the bus heaters to drain the batteries too rapidly, preventing them from completing a full shift. The city's manager of public transit. I found this funny. This is in the newspaper of record, Duluth, Minnesota. One bus was nicknamed Christine after Stephen King's demonically possessed car because it had so many gremlins. Yep. $1 billion bus ride. $1 billion bus ride. Paul in the market. What do you think, Paul?
I don't think $1 billion for electric bus this quickly is a good way to spend the money.
Yeah.
At all.
At all?
No.
No. Okay. All right.
There's a lot more things that we could do.
Like what, Paul? Like what?
Like what you mentioned, social housing.
Yeah.
Long-term care upgrades.
Long-term care, homelessness, addiction. Take your pick, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Even down to like community health care services that would include easier access for mental health, especially after the pandemic. You know, we can barely get LRT properly. We've got the second-year pilot project of those bleeping scooters here on the market.
You're not a fan. You're not a fan of the e-scooters.
Actually, yes, I am.
Okay.
But having them loitered all over the
littered, yes.
place,
yeah. No. Okay. All
it's
right.
wrong. All this money being spent, you know, the bike lanes and everything else. Enough with the transportation in this city. Let's concentrate on other things that every community, everybody in the community can use. Okay. Not just transportation. We've got enough with transportation expenses right now.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Thank you. I'm glad to hear you're well. Sharon in Ottawa. Sharon, good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Hi, Sharon.
As I've told you before, you're not good for my blood pressure.
No? Okay. Sorry about that.
I heard this morning, I heard you the other day talk about pilot project for the electric buses, and that got the blood boiling a little bit because I thought, here we go.
Here we go.
And then they jumped from thinking about a pilot project to all of a sudden we're getting a fleet of these things. Yeah. And the gentleman who phoned in extolling the virtues and telling us how much money we're going to save, we have saved so much money over some of these pipe dreams that come from various levels of government, but we never see a cent of it. We hear about the savings, but it never comes.
Okay.
All we get is more expense.
Right.
When I think about the things that this city needs, the roads are in dreadful shape.
Roads? Oh, my gosh.
Social programs? Sure.
You wouldn't put one penny into the roads, would you?
Well,
You're not one of those people who wants to spend money on roads.
It only encourages bad behavior if you spend money on roads.
Oh, yeah.
So what are you going to run those buses on?
I know. No. Look, it's a big concern, actually, the state of the roads. State of the roads are in an awful state of
I was out
disrepair.
driving yesterday in the city, Baseline, Woodruff, that area.
Yeah.
Potholes at this time of year.
Yeah.
It's insane. They're just not fixing roads. They say we can't afford it. Well, how can you afford these buses then, and why? I mean, some of the bus decisions that have been made over years, those articulated buses.
Oh, I don't know if you remember do you remember the very first articulated buses that we bought?
Oh my God.
I believe they were built in a country I don't even know if that country exists anymore, to tell you the truth. Maybe one of those Eastern European countries that doesn't exist, or maybe they may have been made in Turkey. They bought these accordion buses.
Yep. They couldn't go up the hill in the winter.
Well, they had never been through a winter, let alone an Ottawa winter, and within a year they were rusted out. I mean, it was awful.
Gosh,
I wish I could remember where those buses.
I have very poor memory skills, but I remember a lot of this. I also remember having a discussion with Scott Moffat many years ago when he first got elected, and talking to him about the fiasco that is our garbage program and the green bin program. Mm-hmm. And he said, frankly, if he'd been on council when they signed that contract for the green bins, he'd have signed it for longer than 20 years. And I'm going, oh my God, there's another fiasco. Like, they get these grand ideas.
Yes, they do.
And it's just the definition of insanity.
I mean, if I'm buying anything with wheels on it that costs $2.2 million, it better say Ferrari on the front. That's what I'm...
And be parked in my driveway.
Thank you, Sharon. Bye-bye. Steve in Ottawa. Steve.
Hey, how you doing?
Oh, we're rocking it today, Steve. We're rocking it today.
My God, I just can't believe the stupidity of our city council and mayor. It's just unbelievable.
Well, they're going to say, but the federal government has given us all this money, Steve. That's what they're going to say. They're giving us all this. How can we say no? Okay, the Trudeau Liberals are showing up. They're throwing money at us. How can we say no to something like this?
It's like Randall said earlier on your program, about John Mancosi saying, last year that it's just not feasible here in Ottawa. The winters that we have, and the size of the routes.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean. I can see trying out a couple of buses, but it's never going to work. And to spend that type of money on technology that's not quite proven yet, especially for buses.
Okay.
My neighbor has an electric car, and the winter that just passed, for 4 or 5 days he couldn't charge it because it was too cold outside.
Oh, really?
He couldn't drive his car. He wound up.
I don't know. I've put winter performance to owners of electric cars. They have reported no issues to me on electric cars. And in fact, one of the beauties of the electric car in the winter is you get instant heat. You don't have to wait for the car to warm up. The heat comes right out of the vent immediately, which actually sounds kind of nice to me, Steve. But
but there's still issues with those as far as the charging in the winter and that. And it does reduce.
Well, wouldn't you like to figure all of that out first before you go spend $1 billion? I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think they should take that $1 billion and get some psychiatrists there and check all their heads.
All right, Steve. Thank you. Okay. Be right back. Final quarter. Talk back hour, Rob Snow Show. The $1 billion electric bus rider we being taken for a ride. This is City News.
Here at the Thirsty Maiden, we offer a variety of products. So everything from breakfast items, so it's breakfast sandwiches and scones, which have become a staple item here at the cafe. We have an assortment of pastries and cakes and desserts. So we're really big on our dessert bar, which a lot of people come here for. And of course, our delicious coffee beverages. So we do offer not your typical lattes, things like a chocolate banana coconut latte, cinnamon coconut, which is my favorite, and our take on even a pumpkin spice, which we add nutmeg and a dash of cayenne in just to give it a bit of a kick. When you start a business, you don't factor in all the things that could go wrong. You think anything that goes wrong, any failure, is got to be something on your shoulders. You didn't market right, you're carrying the wrong products, you didn't price your items correctly, all the things, right? But when this pandemic began, things going through my brain were I didn't factor in a pandemic. And we were just starting to grow. We were about to blow up, and I think I spent 2 days crying. And then I shut my business down for, I think, a period of 2 or 3 days. And just being at home during that time, I realized this is not me. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a hard worker. I don't give up, and I'm a go-getter. And I started to think, well, I should probably just start clearing out my freezers and posting and seeing who wants to buy what. And that was sort of how I built my momentum back up. I realized that there's still a large number of people that wanted to support us and were looking for the items that I had to provide. So we started there. Then I reopened literally not even 3 or 4 days after I'd closed my doors, and then started doing curbside pickups and deliveries, started doing the deliveries myself, free deliveries to the local community, going as far as Bell's Corners and Carp as well. And that's why we're still here. This community has really kept us going a year into the pandemic. We've had a changeover of staff a couple times now, and situations change, and when you can't offer hours and hours for your employees, you don't blame them when they have to go elsewhere. So I think that's also been one of the challenges is recruiting, training, and then they leave, and then bringing in more people and recruiting. And anybody in this industry will tell you that that's something we deal with on a regular basis, whether or not COVID's in the mix or not. But more so now, because every time there's a lockdown, there's a risk of, will we make it through? And then you lay off more staff. And again, their situations and their circumstances change.
It's time to talk back.
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
So David says somebody called in and gave you the background on those accordion buses, the articulated buses. And I said they came from Eastern Europe, but I didn't know if the country existed. But Hungary is still around. And that's where they came from, right, Dave?
Yeah, I've got actually 2 emails now. Yeah, so the model number of the bus is it's called the Orion Icarus 286.
Oh, really?
And
that's what they were called?
And so these were made in Hungary. And
made in Hungary.
Deployed primarily in Ottawa and Toronto for OC Transpo and the TTC. The Orion 3 fleets, this is from Wikipedia, were retired prematurely due to corrosion.
Yeah, I bet they were.
All examples were withdrawn from service by 2003.
Wow. Yeah, I remember those things. Holy cow. Rusty. Now, look, we're talking about the $1 billion bus, right? Just let me make one final point, because we have a planet to save, of course, from the climate emergency, and that's why we want to deploy $1 billion on 450 buses. It's life and death. It's life and death, right? I hear from the environmental left around the council table, which is all of them now, I guess, this is going to go, quote unquote, a long way to helping us meet our greenhouse gas emission targets in the city of Ottawa. And I think we can put that to the test, too. At least I did this morning, because I wanted to know, well, what's a long way? Okay. According to the city's own literature, not my data, the city's data, which I looked up this morning, 4% of all of Ottawa's greenhouse gas emissions comes from what is known as the corporation, city operations, okay? The daily operations of the city of Ottawa, from city-owned buildings to city-owned vehicles, 4%. Or put another way, 96% of emissions come from what we do with our cars and our trucks and our houses, office buildings, apartment buildings. You get the idea. That's where the vast majority of greenhouse gas emissions come from in Ottawa. 4% of greenhouse gas emissions are created because of the daily operations done by the city of Ottawa. And half of that 4% comes from OC Transpo. So I guess you could say it's 2%. Right? Fair enough? If 4% of all of Ottawa's emissions comes from city operations and half of those emissions come from transit, then aren't we talking about roughly 2% of Ottawa's annual tally for greenhouse gas emissions? And now let's think, this is about half the fleet. 450 buses. So is it 1% then? And is that the going rate? $1 billion for a 1% reduction in greenhouse gases? So do you understand my concerns here? Do you understand my concerns here? 450 electric buses for $1 billion for a 1% decline in total greenhouse gas emissions in the city of Ottawa. Is that the going rate so we can cure it all for $100 billion? $100 billion? Vince in Nepean. Good morning, Vince.
Good morning, Rob.
Hi.
Well, it's obvious the city always has the same old spending problem. It's not a revenue problem. They don't know what the money to get in, and they spend money they don't have. There's also so many other things they could do, like they could build an incinerator for our trash. They could build a new hospital in the south end of Ottawa. They could do a better job on the roads. This electric technology is still in its infancy. It's still not perfected. It's still got problems. So we're going to be buying a bunch of problems. And this is where this is the issue that I have. We're buying problems again, just like the articulated bus problems, and just like the LRT problems. They never seem to come in with something that's already tried, true, and proven. They seem to always come in with something that they're always.
Let's try this out on people like Vince. Let's see if this will work, right? Yeah, we don't know. We really don't know, Vince. Yeah. And I like your point, Vince. It's such a good point you made. I mean, your list could be endless, right? We heard this during the Mark Motors tax break debate. Oh, think of all the good it could do. Fighting homelessness, the lack of affordable housing, social housing in disrepair, 10-year wait time for a unit in social housing, mental health care, residential drug treatment, opioid crisis. What do you do? Imagine the dent you can make in all of those things with $1 billion. Stittsville, Bill. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Mark.
Morning. Yeah, it's Rob here. Yeah, it's Rob.
Or Rob, sorry.
That's okay.
It boggles my mind why they want to spend this $1 billion. You got the LRT first phase. That was just a mess. You got the green bin. That was a mess. And Jim is always putting the pressure on. Oh, we've got to have a vote now. We've got to have a vote now. It may be gone. This money may be gone if we don't vote right now and accept it. And he always puts it to them that, this is important. This has to be confidential. He's always being the good liberal. And how is, Trudeau's going to be able to use this later down the road, say, well, we just gave $1 billion to Ottawa for their electric buses. And also a leadership. This is Ottawa, the capital of Canada. Let's show a little leadership. Let's show a little leadership in fiscal responsibility. Nobody's riding these buses right now.
Well, isn't that it? Who knows when riders will return? Who knows when riders will return? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Spend $1 billion, build an incinerator that will generate electric power, and then maybe, just maybe, we can use that electric power that's being generated by the incinerator to fuel these electric buses down the road.
Okay. All right, Bill. Thank you. I want to take as many calls as I can here before the top of the hour, so we're going to have to move along pretty quick. Judy and Almont, what do you think, Judy?
Well, in addition to all the excellent points made, unless I've missed a whole segment of the conversation, what about the safe disposal of all of these batteries once they're at the end of their life? Okay. I don't hear anything about that at all. So I don't know if I'm in favor of any kind of electric vehicle, even one for myself in 10 years' time, until they can tell me what they're going to do with those, which contain some of the most toxic substances on Earth. I mean, they're already having problems safely storing nuclear waste. We're just going to pile onto that problem now?
Okay, thank you.
Do you know anything about the safe storage of dead batteries?
Don't know anything about it, no.
No one talks about it.
Okay, Judy, thank you. Okay, let's take this call here. Keith in Ottawa. Good morning, Keith. You're on City News.
Hey, Rob, you're talking about people returning and going a long way. We should at least buy two. But the Liberals in one and the City Council on the other, and tell them to go, and wherever they're getting, don't bother to come back. And then try and get somebody that's responsible enough there to figure out where the money is really needed. And they're shutting down rinks and everything all the time and everything. And we talked about the Mark Motors things. Well, maybe build a couple more of the good old Maple Leaf hotels where people can go and relax and enjoy it. And have a bit of music.
Okay, all right, Keith. Okay, and this will be the last call. It's Jeremy in Smiths Falls. Morning, Jeremy.
Hey, how's it going today?
Good today, Jeremy.
All right, so I'm no Greta Thunberg there when it comes to greenhouse gas and stuff like that.
Yep.
I'm all for these buses. I think there should be the diesel motors in them for charging systems, but you know, I'm a mechanic, so I work on lots of things. But these DPF systems and DES systems and all the particulate systems that go into these diesel motors already, the price of that is just outrageous. So you think of the cost anyway, everything breaks down, or I wouldn't have a job. So, you know, these electric motors, they're actually some of the highest torque, some of the best running motors going. You just don't go full electric.
Okay, like hybrid electric, maybe, Jeremy.
Yeah, diesel.
Yeah, see, we tried those, and they didn't work very well in Ottawa, though.
You know, technology comes a long way.
Okay. All right, Jeremy, thank you. Thank you. Wow, busy hour on that topic, wasn't it? Okay, Friday free-for-all tomorrow during the talkback hour. So if we didn't get to a topic that you wanted to bring up this week, tomorrow's your chance. More City Hall news right after the news. This is City News.
This is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, June 17th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 19 degrees. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. It's an effort to create more safe space for Indigenous women and children and LGBTQ2 plus people. The federal government putting forward about $125 million to create 12 new emergency shelters right across the country. The Indigenous Services Minister, Mark Miller, says it's part of an ongoing effort to respond to calls for action from the report on missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls.
It was clear that we need to do more to ensure women have access to culturally safe, preventative program emergency shelters, and other types of safe spaces like transitional housing so that they can escape violence. This is crucial.
The Minister for Families says his department is contributing $85 million over 5 years. That's for construction of shelters. And Indigenous Services is putting forward just over $40 million. That's for the operational costs. Each will contribute $10 million a year after that. This will add at least 124 new units right across the country. Ontario is reporting 370 more COVID-19 cases today, along with 7 more deaths. There were just under 30,500 tests completed for these results. The positive rate, though, is 1.3%. Now, 34 of these cases are in Ottawa, 1 new case in the Eastern Ontario Health Unit, 2 in Renfrew, but no new cases reported by the province in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark. Yesterday, there were also 210,600 vaccine doses administered. Health Minister Christine Elliott said that was an incredible day. City News Time, 11:02, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Warmer air on the way after a chilly start this morning. Plenty of sunshine, some afternoon cloud. We'll get into a west wind, and some areas will warm to near 27 degrees. Tonight, partly cloudy, 14, and tomorrow, we'll have increasing cloud. Light rain arrives in the afternoon. The high again, though, about 27. For today, the high, 27.
And right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, it's 19 degrees. The president and CEO of the Ottawa Humane Society very concerned about recent cat killings in the city. 2 were found dead yesterday morning around the West Hung Club Woodruff area. Now, police say there is evidence the cats had been abused before they were killed. Bruce Roney says they're offering a $5,000 reward now for the person or people responsible.
A reward seemed like an obvious thing for us to do. And with the hope that someone along the way has seen something that perhaps they've forgotten or didn't understand the significance of when they saw it, that they would reach out to the police and provide that information. So I'm hoping that this really helps to solve this case very quickly.
Now, Roney warns pet owners to keep outdoor cats inside. City News Time, 11:03. The Federal Conservative Party calling for a House of Commons censure of Defence Minister Harjit Sajjan over the ongoing sexual misconduct issues plaguing the military.
It's a way for Parliament to express our condemnation of his failed leadership. It's a rarely used procedure.
Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole accusing Minister Sajjan of corruption and cover-ups and claims he has lost the moral authority to implement changes needed to end harassment in the armed forces. And Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International releasing a damning 100-page report on Canada's immigration detention system. The group say Canada detains thousands of asylum seekers every year in an often abusive condition where people of color appear to be held for longer periods of time. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Pat Uguccioni is the managing editor of the Ottawa Community Voice newspapers. Used to work at City Hall, used to work in Mayor's office. Tuned-in guy joins me this morning here on City News. Welcome back.
Good morning.
How are things?
They're great.
That's good. That's good. So Mayor Watson says he's going to take a long weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't blame him, right? Very busy. Good to unwind, relax, recharge, reflect.
Well, it won't be a walk in the snow.
Won't be, okay, all right, okay. Won't be a walk in the snow, but nevertheless, I do wonder if he is contemplating his political future.
I'm sure he always is.
Yeah? What's your sense of it, Pat, right now, what way he's leaning?
I get this question asked all the time. I really sort of go back and forth. Like others have said, he's the longest-serving mayor. He doesn't really have much more to prove, but he's still a relatively young man with years ahead of his career. So I don't know how to answer that question. Sometimes I say that he's going to leave, and sometimes I say he's going to be our Hazel McCallion. So really don't know.
Okay.
And I haven't heard anything.
There was a time when I felt that way too. That he'll be mayor as long as he wants to be mayor. That he could be the Hazel McCallion of Ottawa, so to speak. Because his machine is just so powerful.
Well, I learned from personal experience, you can be the best candidate in the race, but if you don't have the boots on the ground, you're not going anywhere. So you're right. His machine is unparalleled.
Yeah. I mean, he's met everybody. Right. He's been everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. And that pays dividends come election time.
It does.
So,
I always say he with longest list wins. So.
Right. He has a memory like an elephant, too. So
he's got an incredible filing system, too.
Yep. So, look, Bob Chiarelli says he's making a serious run, that he's serious about making a run.
Yeah.
And I believe him.
And he said he's running
whether Jim is running or not.
And if you follow him on Twitter, he's obviously awakened his Twitter account and speaking out on different issues like traffic congestion. The latest being the electric bus purchase.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Pat. That had my phone lines ringing off the hook here in the last hour.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the debate yesterday. It's incredible. In 2 hours, they decided to spend, make a $1 billion commitment. No public consultation, really no, deep dive into the numbers and viability and whatnot. So this I guess, goes to council next.
There will be more public consultation and public debate about a $1 billion electric bus purchase on the Rob Snow Show than there will be at Ottawa City Hall. I guarantee you there will be.
There wasn't a lot of probing questions yesterday. I mean, it was a good presentation by staff. It sort of answered all the questions, but I'm sure the public would like to weigh in on this.
Yeah. Could you... Now, one thing with Jim Watson, let's circle back to the mayor's race here, okay? One thing with Jim Watson is he knows when to hold him and he knows when to fold him, if you know what I mean.
Right.
He knows when to jump into a race and he knows when the winds are blowing the other way and maybe I should look for other opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed?
Over his career, certainly,
Yeah. Leaving municipal politics, going provincially, going to places like the Tourism Commission,
right?
Moving into the media. Okay, I see a vulnerable mayor. Let's run for mayor.
Right.
Very calculating, right? In your think back, has Jim ever lost an election?
Jim Watson has never lost an election, including I think the president of the Residents Association at Carleton University. So no, he's never lost an election.
Never lost an election, right?
No.
So if Bob Chiarelli really is a threat, which is kind of a big if, but if Bob Chiarelli even poses a threat, I wonder if Jim would run.
Well, it's I mean, insiders or those political geeks like us remember around the time of amalgamation where Jim didn't run for mayor, and I can only guess that he did some polling or his people did some polling that showed that he might not win, so he decided not to. But I mean, only he knows why he didn't at the time.
But if you've never lost an election, do you want to flirt with a perfect record?
Yeah, I think there's only one heavyweight fighter that ever retired undefeated. So yeah.
Okay. So that's interesting. Okay, so those are two names, Jim and Bob.
Right.
Who else? What do you hear and what do you know? Who's interested?
Well, I think I've told you before, I don't think it's any secret that Diane Deans is thinking of it, the long-term councillor Gloucester Southgate. She'll be more of a centrist candidate. I think you'll see someone on the left, maybe like a Sean Menard.
Really?
I don't think you'll see more than one or two from the left splitting that vote. So, I mean, it could be him. I mean, I've told you before, there's rumors that Lisa McLeod's thinking of it.
And what do you think of that, Pat?
Well, I definitely think that somebody on the right of the spectrum will jump in.
What do you think about her if she decides to?
Well,
because before I talk to you, I'd never heard of that. So
yeah, I obviously there's a certain percentage of fiscal conservatives in the city that would certainly rally behind her, but there's also a Vern White that's often talked about who would probably be going after the same vote. So obviously there would have to be a discussion there.
The former police chief, Senator Vern White. Yeah,
exactly. A name I heard this week was Ian Lee. I guess
Ian Lee.
Yeah, he's someone on your
really.
Show. I mean, it would be a big gamble for him to leave.
You heard that? I didn't hear that. He has never said anything like that to me that he would be.
No, it's. I mean, we travel in some similar circles, but it is a name that sort of got dropped on me. Oh my gosh!
I will have to ask him about that next week.
I mean, why would you leave that professorship at a university? I don't know, but he certainly has his opinions. He's weighed into a lot of issues like the official plan and Lansdowne Park, etc. And he's expressed those opinions many times on your show.
Oh yes,
so
yeah. And he's passionate. He signs up for committee meetings. He goes to committee meetings. He gives the councillors heck for all kinds of stuff. Like, he's not shy about his opinions. Yeah.
So I mean, if there's a lot of people in the race, you can't count anybody out because it would be such a voter split, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. Now, another name that you have mentioned before, and I'd like to revisit that again, is Yasser Naqvi, the former Ottawa Centre Liberal MP and Attorney General, Cabinet Minister.
Right. I mean, obviously.
Gosh, that's a lot of Liberals in the race.
Right.
So,
exactly. I mean, with like I say, he's got a network that I'm sure he would work. I'm not sure whether he has a regional following. I mean, he was more of obviously he was a downtown MPP. So, yeah. I mean, it's good for people like us to cover these things, and it's always good for the public to have lots of different points of view and candidates, and it'll help the races in the 23 wards to have a strong mayoral race.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's one thing. Okay, so Sean Menard wants to run. Who outside of the glebe knows who Sean Menard even is?
Right. But then, I mean, would he be backed by the unions and so some of the progressive organizations in the city helping him with lists and organizers and people on the ground knocking on doors? So, but obviously, you need that kind of organization behind you. But the biggest thing,
the thing with Jim is, and Bob Shirelli for that matter, they are known,
right,
from one end of the. For better or worse, from one end of the city to the other. Right. So,
but bottom line, it will come down to if you're a serious candidate in this race, if you can't raise at least $500,000, and likely a lot more than that, you're really not a serious candidate.
Really?
Right.
Yeah, Walter Robinson told me not that long ago it cost $1 million to run for mayor.
It does. I mean, in that neighborhood. So, do any of these people that we mentioned today have that wherewithal to raise that kind of money? Probably not. So people can talk about it this far out, but when it comes down to...
Well, especially if you're a left-winger and you've said, I'm not going to take any developer money or right?
And you can't take union money anyways, but I mean, there's ways around that. People donate individually. But,
yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, lots of names, but really, if there's that many people in the race... it'd be a huge voter split, but really, I think there's only two names that we mentioned today that would have the wherewithal to raise that kind of money.
And when again, you may know this better than me, is it 6 months out that you declare? Is that right?
There is a deadline, I think, of May of 2022, I believe, to get your name in the race. It might have been backed up to January, but of the election year. But,
right. Okay.
Yeah. So I think you can start raising money.
Like the campaign is like 6 months or something.
Right. Usually,
you can't start raising money and that kind of stuff until then.
Right. I think you can start raising money January 1st of the election year. Now I think it changed in the last election. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
That's why you get a lot of people jumping in right on January 1st, so they can start raising money.
Yeah. Should be an interesting year in municipal politics, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's all going to be, what is Jim Watson going to do?
Right, and I think a lot of the names that you hear, or we talked about, will likely have second thoughts if they have to go against one of those two. So,
yeah. And that's how we should wrap it up. If Jim is in, a lot of other people aren't.
I would agree, and I mean, and people have told him that the last election that they were to wait until he wasn't around, so they wouldn't run against him. But.
Yeah. Okay, says a lot about his political capital still, right?
I mean, if anyone's known in all 23 wards, it would be.
Oh yeah,
it would certainly be those two that we discussed.
Okay. Yeah. Good to see you, hear you.
Great, thanks.
All of that stuff, Pat. Talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. From Ottawa Community Voice Newspaper's managing editor, Pat Uguccioni. When we return, hydro bills. We haven't done a lot of talking about hydro bills on the Rob Snow Show. And you don't hear a lot of whining and complaining, actually, about sky-high hydro bills the way we used to when Dalton McGuinty was premier, when Kathleen Wynne was premier of Ontario. But there is a tremendous cost to that. And according to new research from the C.D. Howe Institute, it's $6.5 billion a year. It's a huge expense to subsidize your hydro bill. We'll talk about it next with Benjamin Dachis from the C.D. Howe Institute on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
We just took over this business about a few weeks prior to the pandemic, but we've been loving the community, the people, very friendly, but it's been very difficult starting up a new business, just the time that we did, but I'm sure it's the same everywhere. We did take a broken business, which doesn't help us, but we thought we believe in what we do. We're very passionate about food, and we just really wanted to share the Iraqi culture through our food. All our recipes are homemade, so this is very unique. Usually you hear restaurants, shops, it's all frozen food or prepared food, so nothing here is prepared, everything is homemade. We get our meat and produce from a local farm, so supporting local is the way to go. We are supporting all the way. And our meat are actually marinated the day of, so it's as fresh as can be. Quality ingredients and everything is made from scratch. I get a lot of people when they come in, they say it tastes like Middle Eastern, like back home. So for you to have been to Iraq and have the food there, you can really compare and see the similarity. We do like to focus on healthy. So our recipes, not only the homemade, again, everything is from scratch, but we have from combos and to small sandwiches. One of our favorites and very popular is the chicken salad and the beef salad. So now you're getting all the protein and all these amazing ingredients that we all need. During this time, I find a lot of people are sitting at home and not enough movement. So to come here and get something healthy other than go elsewhere and just put, what's not so good for our bodies, makes a huge difference. So we have shawarma sandwiches, combos. I mean, if you're looking for a meal to feed your family, I would highly recommend the family platter. It comes literally with everything, with potatoes, with rice, with chicken, with beef, and we don't charge extra for mix. I know a lot of places do. Here we just add everything to your platter. And lots of healthy choices for sure. We're very passionate about food, and for our small family business, it's been good. Like I said, it's a little struggle, but we are not a chained restaurant.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
You know, we used to call it the hydro crisis in Ontario. A popular political slogan was heat or eat, that was the decision facing many modest income Ontarians because of public policy decisions around electricity generation and distribution. Heat or eat, that people had to decide whether they were going to heat the home or feed themselves. That's how severe it was. So, what came along were a myriad of basically subsidy programs. Now, you can put a lot of the blame on that on decisions made by the former Liberal government under Kathleen Wynne and even before her under Premier Dalton McGuinty. But the fact is, still to this day, the situation with subsidies artificially depressing what people are paying in Ontario on their hydro bills. Doug Ford's done nothing about that, and it's a tremendous cost every year. And to talk more about it, we're joined from the C.D. Howe Institute, out with a new report on this. Benjamin Dachis joins me. Good morning.
Good morning.
How much money a year is this now?
$6.5 billion, at least in the 2021-22 fiscal year. Let's put this in context. That is $700 million more than what the province plans to spend on long-term care. That seems a bit misaligned with society's priorities these days.
$6.5 billion a year.
Correct. And that is unsustainable.
Rate subsidies, right? Rate subsidies to artificially lower, say, the hourly rate for electricity.
Yeah, and to put that amount in, again, another bit of perspective, the overall system cost, what it costs to actually generate, deliver and run the market is about $20 billion per year. So this is a big chunk of the overall system cost. You, as you're paying out of one pocket, but goes one right into another from a role of a ratepayer versus a taxpayer. So what we have to really do is cut costs in the system. And that's what we've got to start turning to, but no government has really taken serious efforts over the last couple of years to do that.
Right. So that's about 3.5% of total government expenditures are now spent artificially deflating monthly hydro bills. And again, we've just, we've seen how woefully ill-prepared long-term care was to deal with the pandemic. The government spends about $5.5 billion a year on long-term care, $6.5 billion depressing hydro bills. Okay, so again, a question of priorities. But why is it so much, $6.5 billion? How did we get into that position?
Well, it fundamentally comes down to poorly designed contracts. And it's not just for green power. That's what gets a lot of attention. But if you go back even further, there are a lot of poorly designed contracts for things like natural gas that we signed right after the blackout in order to ensure supply. And couple that with a lot less electricity demand than what was originally forecast when those contracts were struck. And here we are. We're stuck with a lot of high-cost contracts. And again, since in the last couple of years, the solution has been very simple and easy fixes that rely on taxpayer support, but no real fundamental reform of either getting the right prices in place for people to pay more efficiently, or on finding the right incentives for companies to find money, except for the one thing that people often forget about and think is the opposite, Hydro One, which is that the privatization of Hydro One has probably been the best thing that the best thing possible.
Should say partial privatization.
Privatization. But if you look at the numbers, if you look at what Hydro One's done since its privatization, it's cut its administrative costs by $90 per customer per year. That is way ahead of any local distribution company across Ontario. It's that kind of lesson that we should be taking in terms of finding ways to cut costs elsewhere in the system.
Okay. So, I mean, this isn't sustainable. We can't keep spending $6.5 billion a year on subsidies for hydro bills. How do you get out from under this? What are the recommendations contained in your report?
Perfect. So two broad bucket solutions. One, just better price design for customers. For example, industrial customers had this banana system where they play whack-a-mole all summer in a way to reduce their electricity demand during the peak hours. It's an arbitrary system. Let's make it a more market-based system. Medium-sized companies should pay their bill on an hourly basis rather than just get this great big bill that they're guessing at the end of the month. And for small businesses and for residents, you have this time of use system that really doesn't work anymore. It's a very rough and ready estimate of the costs. What we should be doing is giving more control over smart devices at home, like your Nest or your Ecobee, or in the future, things like electric cars. Give a little bit more control over to the market operator to reduce your consumption during times of real market stress, and give you a lower price than otherwise the rest of the time. So that's the kind of model that we should be moving towards. First of all, is smarter pricing for all kinds of consumers.
Okay. Very interesting. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Benjamin Dachis. Nice to hear from you again. Yeah, a Director of Public Affairs at the C.D. Howe Institute, report publicly available called Power Surge: The Causes of and Solutions to Ontario's Electricity Price Rise Since 2006. So that was good. So right after the 11:30 news, my gosh, the morning is just flying by. A big business in Ottawa, we talked about this earlier in the week with the head of Ottawa Tourism. A big business in Ottawa is the convention business, people coming to the nation's capital for conventions. Government conventions, high-tech conventions, all kinds of business. It's a huge business in Ottawa. And, wedding receptions and everything else. Convention centers usually do a boom in business in Ottawa. One of them, of course, is the Infinity Convention Center. And we want to get a sort of a sample, a taste, a sense of where the convention business is in the comeback stages, what the reopening plan is for that industry. So we'll be joined by an executive from the Infinity Convention Center coming up. And as well, I just looked at the leaderboard and then I realized, oh yes, the U.S. Open is in California. So really, they're just starting to tee off now, the early groups. Yeah, it's the major. The U.S. Open, which is always a tough test for the professional golfers, but always lots of fun to watch because it's they look mortal when you watch the golfers at the U.S. Open. And Adam Stanley is going to be back with us. He's the golf writer for the Canadian Press. Talk about the U.S. Open at Torrey Pines. All ahead, Rob Snow Show, City News.
local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, the 17th of June. Good morning. I'm Sarah Buchan. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, mainly sunny skies and 21 degrees. Here's what's making news this hour. Provincial health officials reporting 34 new cases of COVID-19 in Ottawa out of 370 new cases across Ontario. The province reported 7 new deaths due to the virus. Leeds Grenville Lanark Health Unit confirms no new cases in that region today. Elsewhere locally, Public Health Ontario reporting 1 new case in Eastern Ontario and 2 in Renfrew County. The numbers out of over 30,000 tests. Provincial positivity sits at 1.3%. Almost a campaign-style stop for Premier Doug Ford this morning in Milton, where he took some questions from reporters about the possibility of moving up step 2 of reopening.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be sitting down with the health table and the science table. I just want to make sure we do it cautiously. I want to get the stamp of approval from all the docs, and we're going to be well on our way. When it comes to the hairdressers, folks, hang in there. We're going to get there as soon as possible.
The Health Minister and Solicitor General are expected to discuss the issue at a briefing today that's scheduled for 1 o'clock. The last time Christina Elliott and Sylvia Jones held a briefing, it was about the Step 1 measures. Canada is going to be getting an unexpected 1 million Moderna vaccines today, given to us from the United States. Procurement Minister Anita Anand making the announcement in a tweet, saying Canada has reached an agreement with the U.S. for the shots. The doses will be arriving this evening. Details of the agreement not yet clear. However, the first vaccine loan from the U.S. earlier this year saw Canada receive a loan of AstraZeneca shots. I'm Sarah Buchan. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM.
and 1310 AM.
The convention business is big business in Ottawa. So are trade shows, charity galas, award shows, wedding receptions, and that's what they do in a big way, par excellence, at the Infinity Convention Center. So how's business? How are things looking? Let's find out. Lee Knowles is Vice President of Operations for the Infinity Convention Center. Joins me this morning on City News. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Very nice to hear from you. Where do convention centers like yours fit into the reopening plan?
We fall into step 3. However, the issue is that Ford hasn't announced the capacity limits that we'll face at that point in time. Up until now, when we've been allowed to open, it's been a maximum capacity of 50 people per venue, as opposed to per room, despite the fact that our rooms are separately ventilated.
Okay, so you would like the rooms to be treated as sort of individual spaces instead of the entire facility itself, which would seem to make sense.
Well, that would be one step, but also identifying what the limits that accompany step 3 are. Right. Because right now, it just identifies that we can reopen. It doesn't identify if that's with 5 people, 50 people, 100 people. I mean, just yesterday I was on the phone with a bride with a wedding booked for the middle of August. And if we're only allowed to reopen July 23rd with unknown capacities, I'm not in a position to bring staff back and have them waiting depending what happens June 23rd. So we're rescheduling our August weddings.
You're rescheduling your August weddings?
Yeah.
You are? Okay. How many weddings is
so
that?
At this point, really, we're looking to open for business mid-September based on the business we have on the books and as well based on what's going on internationally. I mean, on the world stage, mid-September, there are trade shows in the UK going on with hundreds of thousands of attendees. Commercial real estate has been having conferences in the States for at least 6 weeks now. The hockey game in Vegas last night had over 18,000 people. So with our vaccination rates the way we are, we really need to start getting specific numbers so we can move forward with our business plan and our reopening, rehiring.
I'm sorry, Lee Knowles, if I could just, there's so much to digest here, and this is all very frustrating to learn. You could open best case scenario, July 23rd. You could be open for some kind of business, you would think, right? If you had more information on exactly what the rules were, right?
Correct.
But
yes.
you're saying you're not going to open until September the way things are going. Did I hear that right?
You heard that correctly. We can't, without knowing how many people we can have in our facility. As I said, we've got to rebuild our team, and to bring people on staff after we've lost millions of dollars and continued to pay property taxes, heat and hydro with no relief, despite the fact that the federally run NAC and the provincially run Shaw Centre have both received millions of dollars in relief. The locally owned convention business has not.
Wow, isn't that interesting? That's not fair, is it?
Our tax dollars built those facilities, and now as taxpayers, we continue to subsidize them. And
you're subsidizing your competitors, really, aren't you?
Exactly. And yes, exactly. I fight that fight every day. And then at this time, for them to get government grants and us to be left completely on the sidelines is just unbelievable.
Okay. So
there's a lot of local families who have a lot of money invested in this industry.
Yes. So give me a sense. What is your day like now? Dealing with, trying to, get some clarity from the government. That must be part of it. But also dealing with customers and trying to communicate with customers. What is that like, Knowles, for you right now?
Well, it
must be very frustrating.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's one thing to have a discussion with a business person because they can understand and feel our pain, and you're talking the same language. But when you're speaking with a bride who has already postponed her wedding, possibly twice, that's the last thing she wants to hear, is that I can't reopen because I can't afford to bring my staff back if or when I might have business and be allowed to open.
Yeah. So, again, give me a sense of what you were hoping, say, August would look like for you. Like if you were allowed to open, say, July 23rd, what were you hoping to do in August? What was August best case scenario going to look like for you?
Best case scenario, I mean, tying in reality into place. Yeah. I mean, best case scenario, I'd be at 100%.
Yeah.
But that's not realistic.
Okay.
If I was given the ability to open even at 30% capacity, which in our case would mean August groups of 300 attending, I can live with that.
Okay.
Can we do it safely? Absolutely. With the different protocols we've put in place, we can absolutely do that in a safe environment with the screening. Get rapid testing. I go visit my father in the Pearly Hospital as a designated care provider, and I get rapid tested every time I go in to visit him. Why can't they bring the rapid testing in for guests coming out to our events? They're providing it for employees through Ottawa Tourism, and that's fantastic, but we need our guests attending events again. We've got to build that confidence up. We, however, are so confident that by October, we're going to be back in a position to operate. October 1st will be our 5th year of business.
Mm-hmm.
We're planning a grand reopening party for our clients and VIPs. And November 3rd, Celebrity Sports Dinner, which is one of the largest and most sought-after fundraising events in the city, has rebooked, and they're planning to sell out to 500 on Wednesday, November 3rd.
Okay, good.
So, but I've got to have permission.
But you have to know what the rules are, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So on a daily basis, I'm having discussions with these clients, and how do you plan events for hundreds of people?
Yeah.
On such short notice.
Yeah. So here we are. It's June 17th. Like June, July, August. Is that usually a busy time for you?
July and August are busy for the wedding market. Spring and fall are very busy corporately. Previous to COVID, Infinity Convention Center had been open for 3.5 years, and we had made tremendous gains in the marketplace, really made a lot of headway, and we were ahead of projections. And then all of a sudden to sit on the sidelines, as everybody else has for the last year and a half, it's definitely created a problem for, obviously, your momentum. And then from your staffing plan, a lot of our people in the industry across the board have gone on to find other careers, as you would expect. We're losing to people to construction. Construction's booming right now, so I don't blame them. One of our biggest concerns right now is getting serving staff, getting kitchen staff. The restaurants downtown can't get them. Restaurants in Toronto
Where are you going to
get
them? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, we've got a strategy in place. However, we know our staffing costs are going to be increased by about 25%, alongside our food cost going through the roof. It's pretty tough to quote business 2 and 3 years out, and try to give a bride a sense of certainty of the pricing. I can, have my clause in there that the prices are going to increase. However, how do you increase your personal budget on a wedding by 25, 30%? That's just impossible to think about.
Yeah, and then you have, as you say, you have all your fixed costs, your taxes, your utilities, your rent, everything else, right? So, Lee Knowles is with me, Vice President Operations, Infinity Convention Center, South Ottawa here. Going back to March 2020, when the world changed and everything shut down, have you been open at all since then? Have you had one event at all since then?
Well, if you want to call the OPH vaccination clinic an event.
Okay, well, yeah, right.
So we have been fortunate enough to work with Ottawa Public Health in that regard. So they've been open about, I'll say, half a dozen or a dozen days. That's it. We, in our neighboring hotels that we own, we have a program with the government of Nunavut where we're housing people as one of their hubs. So our kitchen at Infinity is cooking food for them. So we've got some, like a handful of kitchen guys working, but that's it. No, the venue itself, 20,000 square feet, sitting completely vacant.
Let's say it was a normal period of time, think about your busiest time, Lee Knowles. How many people would be working for you for the Infinity Convention Center?
We maintained a staff of about 70. We would then fluctuate with agency staff coming in to help serve and help bartend. But, when we were busy, we had a staff of 68. That's how many I had to let go on March 16th, 2020.
Okay. And I would imagine you have an entire food chain there, right? It's the food you have to order, the linens, everything, right? You're running the convention center, but you're in tune with all kinds of other businesses, right?
Right, and the conversations that we're having with suppliers. I mean, I think of Slipikoff. Premium Meats is my meat supplier.
Okay.
Talking to Dave Slipikoff and hearing him say the food we're producing and serving to the guests from Nunavut is really the only business in town. He's used to providing food for the residences at the universities, for Canadian Tire Place, TD Centre, etc. And so to go from that to us, it's like this is individual people and families who have been so hard hit. And I mean, and like I said, then his meat pricing is going through the roof.
Yeah, meat is going through the roof. Yeah, it is.
I mean, then he's got me on the other hand saying, I'm going to need help with you or from you when we reopen because we've got contracts where we can't raise the price. So again, then I'm going to him to look for a favor from him.
Wow. Okay.
So I don't know where this is going to end.
And again, the Ontario Convention business or the Ottawa Convention business, compared to what's happening in the United States, what's happening in other parts of the world, you say we're way behind, right?
Yes, way behind.
Way behind. Okay.
Despite our number of vaccinations being as strong as they are, for which I'm very thankful, but now we've got to catch up in terms of our reopening plan. It's just way too costly to continue to be as safe as we are.
All the best. I hope things turn around fast for you. Thank you so much. A very, very important conversation this morning. I learned a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Okay. Lee Knowles, Vice President, Operations, Infinity Convention Center. 11:46. A welcome distraction is the game of golf. Long walk spoiled. U.S. Open starts today. Torrey Pines in California. Talk about it next with Adam Stanley from the Canadian Press. This is City News.
Papa Jack was started 14 years ago, really by accident more than anything. A friend of mine had bought a grocery store. A popcorn machine was in there. He didn't want it. I ended up by buying it. My family thought I was nuts. When I first said, come and pick up this popcorn machine, my son said, what the heck for? I won't use exact words. But anyway, we started, and it just kept on growing and growing. But at the time, I was the only one selling popcorn in Ottawa. But we persevered as a family, and here we are. So it's been very, very rewarding for my family and myself. And to see our brand name, Papa Jack, and Papa Jack came out of, I wanted something that was going to be very bilingual. So Papa, and then in Ontario, everybody called me Jack, even though my name is Jacques. In Quebec, it's fine, it's Jacques, but in Ontario, it was always Jack. So we married the two together, Papa, Jack. With the store that we have on Thurston Drive, it basically, the factory's in the back. If you come into the store, you can see how the popcorn is being made during the week. So it adds an extra layer of, you can see the sanitation, you can see how we do it. It's not like making popcorn. Most people thought when I started this, I was making popcorn in my garage or in my basement. No, never did. It was started in this building, in the back of the building, and then we kept growing and growing until what we have now. My daughter and my son came up with a brilliant idea to do a fundraiser online. So basically all people have to do is to register here, and we give them a special code number. And with that code number, they tell their friends or their neighbors, everybody, to buy online from us with that code number. And then at the end of each period, could be 2 weeks, could be a month, then we'll pay them a 20% of all the businesses that we got through that code number. One thing I'd like to say is thank you to all the Ottawa people who have supported us and support local businesses. It sometimes people, they talk about buying locally. Now it becomes that much more important to buy locally, to support your local businesses, because not too many of them are going to survive this. We're fortunate that we're so far so good.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
In sports, the 121st U.S. Open just underway at Torrey Pines in California. It was, in fact, a fog delay. They were delayed by fog this morning, but I love the U.S. Open. Major golf, and wasn't the last major exciting with Phil Mickelson taking it down at the age of 50. So let's get you ready for 4 fantastic days of U.S. Open golf with the help of Adam Stanley from the Canadian Press. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
You're glued to it, aren't you? Right?
It's another week of just like 12 hours of golf television here for 4 days in a row. So, yeah, this is what I do for a living. So I'm very excited.
I'm nostalgic for Torrey Pines because I said to David, I can't even remember what the video game system was, if it was Nintendo or if it was even earlier than that, Adam. It may have even been a Commodore 64. But one of the golf courses you could select, Torrey Pines. And it's a regular stop, right, for the PGA Tour. So tell us about the course, first of all.
Yeah, I mean, so the unique thing about Torrey Pines, the golf course, so it's on, the Pacific Coast. It's in San Diego. There's 2 unique things about this golf course. Number one, it's like a municipal golf course. Like residents of California, San Diego, they only have to pay like $40 to play this golf course. It's open to the public 12 months of the year, and Here they are hosting a major championship. So that's probably point number one. Point number two is that, like you said, this hosts a PGA Tour event, a regular PGA Tour event every single year, the Farmers Insurance Open in January. So most of the guys in this field have seen this golf course many times, but the USGA, the United States Golf Association, that puts on the U.S. Open every year, has increased the difficulty, turned it up to 11 a little bit. For example, I spoke with Mackenzie Hughes, a Canadian. He told me that on one of the holes, there's usually about a 15-yard strip of rough to help guys bail out. That rough has been totally eliminated, so now it just goes fairway, cliff. And then that's it, right off the cliff. So a unique test for the guys for sure this week.
And isn't that a tradition with the U.S. Open, Adam, that they set the course up to be probably the toughest test in golf? Would you agree?
They do, for sure. So, a lot of the listeners, probably even casual golf fans, would know about the Masters and Augusta National. And Augusta National is, really built for that back nine on Sunday drama. So they set it up to score. The PGA Championship, which you alluded to a few minutes ago, is set up pretty comparable to a U.S. Open. And then, of course, the British Open over in Europe is very link style, and it's very different. But the USGA grows the rough super, super thick, runs the greens out super, super fast. And it's probably the most complete examination of any major championship stop on the PGA Tour year after year.
Okay. All right. Who do you like?
It's funny. I like Bryson DeChambeau a lot to actually defend his title. So Bryson, of course, famously last year put on 40 pounds of muscle, just went out there trying to bomb it all over the place. But that strategy worked really, really well at Winged Foot in September, which, of course, hosted the U.S. Open last year, moved out of June because of COVID-19. So Bryson just, he comes out yesterday and he totally admits, I'm just going to try to hit it as far as I can all week long. Go find it and do it again. Right. And, you kind of laugh that off and think, man, is this guy joking? But clearly that was the strategy last year, and it worked out. So if Bryson's going to hit it, 350 yards off the tee, even if he's in this super long rough, if he's got a 9-iron in and somebody who only hits it 280, they've got a 5-iron in, obviously he has the advantage. So someone like Bryson, somebody like Brooks Koepka, who, of course, he and Bryson have been going back and forth a lot on social media, Rory McIlroy, any of those guys who bomb it, I like them a lot this week.
Okay. What do you make of that rivalry that's going on right now? What's going on there, Bryson DeChambeau and Brooks Koepka?
I like it for the sake of kind of growing golf's awareness. We don't get that very much in golf because it's an individualistic game. It's not like there's crosstown rivalries between teams. It's not the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Ottawa Senators. It's not the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens and a century of sort of back and forth on these two storied franchises. It's not that in golf. It's one individual, and they play against the golf course every single week. So when something like this comes up, at the end of the day, these guys are colleagues, they're coworkers. You probably don't love everybody you work with, and this just ended up, bubbling over on social media. One video got leaked. There was a lot of sort of disdain reactions to one another, and it is from a place of genuine dislike. I don't think that either of these guys like each other or how they go about it.
I don't like either of them, to tell you the truth.
Okay, so there you go. So that's what's happened. But to put a pin on it, it's transcended the game. Like TMZ is covering this rivalry right now.
Yeah. Okay. Who are the Canadians to watch?
4 Canadians in the field this week. 2 of them qualified Taylor Pendrith and Adam Hadwin via the 36-hole qualifiers, and then Corey Connors and Mackenzie Hughes earn their spots just via their world rankings. So I like Corey a lot. Corey's been playing absolutely fabulous golf, super steady, top 20 at the PGA, top 10 at the Masters earlier this year. He's one of the best ball strikers on the planet, and I think he's got a real shot to contend this week. And Taylor Pendrith, not a lot of people may know him. He plays on the Korn Ferry Tour, but Taylor Pendrith averages 320 yards off the tee this year. If he was playing on the PGA Tour, that would put him second, just behind Bryson, who averages 322. So Taylor hits it a long way, but has a super good short game as well. So Taylor may make some noise this week from sort of that long shot perspective. But very nice to see 4 Canadians in the field this week.
So Lefty made history. He won the last major, the PGA Championship, Phil Mickelson. Does he have a shot in this tournament? What do you think?
Phil had no business winning the PGA last month, and he also had no business winning the British Open that he won a number of years ago. So Phil Mickelson, I think, out of all of the U.S. Opens, he's famously finished second at this major, the only one that's eluded him up to this point in his storied career. I think this is the best shot that he's going to have because he's playing with no fear. He's playing with no real stress. He's coming in having won the last major. I actually do like Phil's chances a lot this week if he can keep it in the fairway. It's kind of a tall ask for him, but I like Phil and I like his vibe and I like everything that's kind of gone into the week for him. He's a San Diego guy.
He's a San Diego guy. It would be the perfect way to complete the career Grand Slam for him too. So, all right, we'll make our predictions. David, who are you going with? Spieth, I suppose, right? You're going to
Colin Morikawa.
Colin Morikawa. I'm going to go. I didn't do very well with my last prediction, but I'm going to go Justin Rose. I'm going to say Justin Rose for the U.S. Open win. Okay? All right. Adam Stanley, thank you so much for today.
No problem. Yep. Always happy to chat a little golf with you guys.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Adam Stanley writes about golf for the Canadian Press. Doesn't that sound like a great job to have? Great job to have. The green fee for Torrey Pines, if you're a San Diego resident, is $63.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV.